Welcome to the Jamal Thomas Morning Show. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is, I always say my show, but honestly, I can't really do this show without any of you. And I appreciate you for joining me on this show. I like to call it the best damn morning show in domestic and international politics that takes place on the web at 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Because that is a hell of a time for people to be up to hear hard news that spans the world. Kind of depends on what's going on. There is a lot going on. There's a lot going on. Weirdly enough, I had a difficult time configuring the show because I've gotten more savvy at trying to, let's say, talk to my guests about things that I think the audience cares about. Usually that boils down to what I care about, sometimes not so much. But to be more precise, that is a hard thing to do because who the hell knows what that is, right? We're in a bubble. Best thing I could do is go with news that I care about and with the hopes that you all care about it also. And there is super interesting news. The Wall Street Journal is going to open with this tomorrow. They're going to open with this. Dow headed for the worst April since the Great Depression. The Dow is headed for the worst April since the Great Depression. That news doesn't get any better, by the way. When you get into the whole thing about bond markets and treasuries and all of that stuff, what you find is that there is a lack of confidence. The dollar is collapsing. That is going to be painful. That is on top of the tariff war where prices are going to go up. So not only is your money going to get you less if you're buying anything from abroad, but you're also going to be paying more on it because of the tariffs that are being added to those products that you yourself are going to get hit with. Not to mention the tariffs that he's putting on China. Donald Trump is living in a magical world as if this was 50 years ago and globalism had just started and you could protect certain businesses from the worst aspects of this. You need a new plan, bro. You're going to be out of office in 3 or 4 years. There's no reason to believe that the pain that people are experiencing is going to lead to some future prosperity down the line. And yet, we're plugging along in this particular case. Treasuries have reached a situation where people seem to be losing confidence in the US, which is pretty astonishing. Under normal circumstances, under some kind of turmoil, some kind of stress, people dive into treasuries with the idea that the US is $1 trillion military, they're going to be around, this is safety. They're not seeing it that way. And with China effectively responding, escalating every day, and by the way, Trump having no capability of extricating himself from that particular situation, that is not a good recipe for ordinary people. Sure, Trump is a billionaire. He conned all of these people into putting money into Truth Social. He can afford it. Mitt Romney, Elon Musk, they are going to be okay. Jeff Bezos, they're going to be okay. It's you and I that's going to take this hit. It's you and I that's going to pay these exorbitant prices. And this is on top of, as I kept saying, a recession. It doesn't take an economic genius to kind of look at this and say, hey, this doesn't quite look good. These economic indicators seem to be going in the wrong direction. And they seem to be going in direct response to Donald Trump and the things that he's effectively doing. Going after Jerome Powell, trying to browbeat the Federal Reserve to cut rates. Okay, again, market crashes, 1,000 points again? So it's not just the market. It is many indicators that seem to be hitting a particular note that is not necessarily the greatest for this country, especially for you and I, people who need to make ends meet. The other interesting story is this, and this is Ryan Grimm. Listen to what Grimm says here, because this is a big deal. As Donald Trump is trying to supposedly, and I'm going to talk to my guest about this because I'm super curious on his point of view, get a deal with Iran, listen to who he hires for his NSC, meaning the person who's going to be responsible for the Israel-Iran desk. Listen to this.
All right, speaking of who's going to fill this vacuum, let's put this element up on the screen. The first of what hopefully will become many co-bro lines with my colleague, Sagar Enjeti. This drop site news article headline, Trump's NSC director for Israel and Iran previously worked for Israeli Ministry of Defense. That headline is what it says it is.
Well,
you're like, wait a minute,
yeah.
you can do that? You can work for the Israeli Ministry of Defense and then you can work for the United States? Well, of course you can. Why did you think that you couldn't?
Well, it's very interesting, isn't it, Ryan? Yeah, let's break some of this down for the audience. So this is very important. So as I explained previously about the NSC, we just talked about power vacuum. So not only do we have Mike Waltz, who we know advocated for a war with Iran when the Israelis were here, we now know that he put in charge of the Israel and the Iran portfolio, combined that portfolio under this woman, Merav Sarin. Now, Merav Sarin is the director for Israel and Iran at the NSC. Now, what we know from her own background, publicly reported, let's put that up there on the screen, please, shall we, is that she admits, quote, worked at Israel's Ministry of Defense, where she participated in negotiations in the West Bank between Israel's coordinator for government activities in the territories and Palestinian Authority officials. So this is a person, Ryan, who literally worked for the Israeli Ministry of Defense.
Yeah.
That's astonishing. That should never happen, right? And to be clear, typically that doesn't happen. Typically, you don't put the same person to go to a particular thing because of issues of dual loyalty. I do not give a shit about anybody saying, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying dual loyalty. When, what is his name? Joe Biden's Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, goes to the Middle East and says, I am a Jew. Okay, I think that's dual loyalty. Why are you telling me that? You're supposed to be going in reference to the United States. And truth be told, AIPAC and those organizations should be considered under FAIR laws. They are actively working on one specific issue that has to do with the government of Israel. The issue with this is Trump has filled his cabinet with all of these Zionists, these lunatics, people who think Christ is going to return in Israel. And Trump is supposed to be working a deal. So the person who's going to be advising him on any kind of Iran-Israel issue is going to be another lunatic. And that lunatic is going to be advising Trump when Trump is supposed to be getting a deal. This is on top of Israel prepping bombing raids on Iran. And you look at this and you think to yourself, okay, this does not look like a recipe for success. I have been very grim on the issue of a deal, to be bluntly honest with you. And I've been very grim because my point of view is there's a continuous thread that goes through all of these administrations. And the Trump administration, they're talking about basically a bombing test, bombing rates, taking out Iranian sites in order to allow missiles and bombs and airplanes in order to get through more successfully. I have been very dour on the negotiations. Donald Trump has put himself in a box linguistically. How do you get out that box if A, you may not have the flexibility that you want in regards to the deal that you're trying to get? B, if Iran wants something that you fundamentally and politically can't give, what do you do? I don't believe this is a bluff. I believe that with all of these goblins, these goofballs and whack jobs, that Trump is effectively surrounded with people of policy. If you put a person in a particular position, they're going to do a particular job. You put that person in that position that is of your mind. Now, you may be sending Witkoff because you think he's a quote unquote realist. But how do you know Witkoff is going to get the goods and get the deal? And Iran has already said, look, we're not negotiating under threat. That is not what we're doing. So the third level of talks are going to take place back in Oman. The first two apparently went okay. They weren't positive, they weren't negative. They were just kind of a statement of either red lines and technical details. The technical details are really going to be discussed in the third one, where a decision, decisions are going to be made on some level. Trump has put bookends around this. Basically, we're not doing this forever. The negotiations need to take place within the course of X amount of time, whatever that X amount of time is. We will see. Israel seems to be taking a position. We have a moment and a window of opportunity to clear the game board, and we're going to take it. And that includes Iran, considering under Wesley Clark, Iran was going to be the last man standing. One last point before I get to my guest. He has been patiently waiting. I hate making my guest wait. The last thing has to do with Trump's deal, quote, being leaked. I got to be honest with you. I was in an interview last night. A guy was interviewing me, of all people. And when he pointed out something, he said, you know, in Trump's deal, he wants to take the nuclear power plant in Zaporozhye. And I was like, that story is not real. That can't be real. And he says, no, dude, really, it's real. Now, I hadn't seen that story because I worked all day. I mean, I literally went from my show back to another show, back to another show. It's real. It's apparently real. And you look at some of the other items that he's talking about, the details. It's cartoonish. And it's so cartoonish, it makes me think either A, it's not real, B, it was designed to fail, or C, Trump is that comically idiotic, where he just fundamentally doesn't understand what's happening right now. If you remember, Trump came out and says, if I don't get this deal, I'm gonna walk. And Russia was like, okay, walk. That military is gonna collapse. What do we care if you walk? We didn't want you to be part of this anyway. Hit the bricks. Good for us. That is the way they're thinking about this. And more to the point, the way for them to effectively get the things that they want out of these negotiations is for Trump to do just that. When Mark was on the show yesterday, Mark pointed out the loser doesn't get to dictate terms. The loser doesn't get to dictate terms. You lost. You acting big and bad like you're, this tough guy who's going to get a deal. You've shot your load, bro. You have no cards. You can go to nuclear war. Okay, fair enough. But the notion that you're going to put U.S. troops, or the notion that the U.S. is going to take over a power station that is literally under Russian constitution, part of the Russian government, is outlandish. It's outlandish on its face. And yet, that is apparently one of the proposals. UN peacekeepers or EU peacekeepers. That's another one. Whatever the hell they call them. They don't call them peacekeepers. They call them like savior force or whatever the hell that is. It's anything. They're peacekeepers that are being put in, effectively NATO being put into parts of Ukraine. Again, none of these things are acceptable. All of these things are just complete, flat out niets. Flat out niets. I don't want to believe that the president is this incompetent. I just don't. Maybe he is. I just don't. And if he is not that incompetent, this is a deal designed to fail, to allow Trump to walk, to say, I tried to make a deal. These two sides aren't in for it. In fact, what's wild about it is there was a reporting that Ukraine was 90% on board for this deal. You go to Ukraine and they're like, we have no idea what the hell you're talking about. We're not 90% on board. Right here. This is Ukrainian, what do they call it? Pravda, which is kind of funny to me. Right here. Ukraine Defense Ministry denies Ukraine is 90% behind U.S. peace proposal. If they were, they would not be working with the Europeans to kill the deal. I'm just pointing it out. Zelensky has gone to his European benefactors who are radically delusional. And one of two things, either they're radically delusional or, as Andre pointed out yesterday, they intend to drag Russia into a guerrilla war by having all of Ukraine taken. And that goofball Zelensky goes right along with it. It's strange. And I guess the politics of it is the thing that needs to be discussed, because I don't think it can't be the way it's being shown. That is a deal that Russia is going to, no. If you walk, thanks, leave. We prefer you to do that. Trump, on some level, has to know that, but maybe he doesn't. Let me bring in my guest who covers the stuff all the time. The stories, man. I saw that this morning and I was like, what in the hell? Brian, man, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you joining me. Brian is a journalist, a writer. New Atlas, where they do just fantastic work. And before I even knew who Brian was, I had videos of his saved because of rundowns that he did that I was like, wow, that's insightful. That's awesome. I am pleased to have you on the show, Brian. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you joining me. How you doing today? You doing all right?
I'm doing well. It's the evening here in Thailand where I'm based. Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, dude, you are welcome back anytime. I love these conversations. These kind of big news often gives people individual snapshots that is disconnected from everything else. And so you look at it and you be like, you feel informed. And you're like, oh, I know about this thing. Missing the fact that there are larger connections that are effectively taking work that makes that what it is. they almost, I want to say misinform the audience because they leave that out, but maybe I don't want to do that anyway, right? I wouldn't have a job if they did it well. What do you think of that story? I mean, they are saying that within 3 days, Donald Trump is going to release his quote unquote peace plan. I ain't calling it cartoonish. It is ludicrous that he thinks that territory, meaning the notion that Trump says you're going to get the 5 territories, no NATO for Ukraine. For one, how do you prove no NATO for Ukraine? How do you do that, right? When you have the director of NATO effectively saying after a peace deal, we will have this, we will revisit this issue. Okay, again, killing any kind of deal. And then it's like we're giving you the 5 regions that you have taken in blood, by the way, meaning we don't need you to give us anything. We already took this. This is part of the Russian Constitution. We're going to take the remainder of it. But then to be so ludicrous as to say, by the way, the nuclear power plant that is in Zaporozhye, we're going to take that. We'll take that off your hands. We'll help you out. Is this a deal designed to fail with Donald Trump realizing I can't get a deal? Meaning something in it was clicked. Europe is not going to be for it. They're not going to accept anything we propose. Russia is not going to accept anything we propose. We can't do anything on the ground. Zelensky, that lunatic, that little troll, is running around with Europe doing everything they can to kill the deal. It is impossible for me to get a deal under these terms. So I'm going to come up with a peace plan, and I'm going to say they're not working with me, and I'm going to walk, like Steve Bannon said, walk the F away. Is that what is happening right now? Because otherwise, he can't be this comically incompetent. Give me your thoughts.
Well, I hate to do this to people who follow my work because I've referenced this directive that U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth gave to Europe on February 12th this year, where he laid absolutely all of this out. There's going to be European troops going in on the ground to freeze the conflict. So it's a Syria-style freeze. And then it's a Minsk III framework, which Russia has outright rejected, and rejected the idea of freezing it until it could be, this all the hostilities could be instigated again at some point in the future. And Secretary Hegseth to Europe was saying, double down on arming Ukraine, double down on helping them reorganize their military, expand your military industrial base. We will expand our military industrial base. We need to go deal with China. You freeze this conflict with Russia, and then we can circle around back to it at a later. That's essentially what he was saying. And this was always the plan. This was the plan the U.S. used successfully, I might add, to overthrow the government in Syria. And now it is the plan that they have laid out and had in mind people who have been following this the last 3+ years now. We were warning that this was going to be the plan. When they failed winning this proxy war against Russia, they would do a Syria-style buffer zone in whatever was left of Ukraine. People have been saying this since 2022. And they would do a Minsk III. And now that's exactly what we have. That's what it is.
Do they believe that Russia doesn't have access to that information? Do they really believe that Russia, for one, after seeing Syria, after encountering Minsk I and II, after seeing Donald Trump pull out of pretty much every agreement that he got involved in, whether it was the one in Israel, whether it was, hell, even NAFTA, for God's sake, even the missile treaties under the first Trump administration, where John Bolton was involved, because John Bolton doesn't believe in these type of treaties. He believes it limits U.S. capability, believing that the U.S. is the top dog. Does he really believe that they would be that naive to trust and accept any of this? Which is my point, right? This is why I come around to they can't be this stupid. But I think you're saying maybe they are.
Or maybe they want to appear to be pursuing diplomacy, which is a reoccurring theme throughout years and years of policy papers. They always talk about the necessity to appear to pursue diplomacy and make it appear as their adversaries are the ones seeking conflict, so that when escalation takes place, they can blame it on, say, Russia in this case, or these talks with Iran, they'll blame it on Iran. They're not interested in peace with Iran. Who believes that? I don't believe that for a moment. But they're doing this for perception management to make it appear as if they want diplomacy, and when diplomacy fails, and you can see that this from a mile away, they're setting it up to say, and Secretary Rubio even said, "Oh, we're trying everything possible to end this war. Everyone's just being impossible, and we'll just wash our hands of it." It's America's war on Russia being fought through Ukraine. It's America's war. They can end it anytime that they want to. All of this theater, all of this delaying, all of this theatrics between the U.S. and Europe, which is completely politically captured by the U.S. to do. There's one thing I might disagree with are people who say that Europe and Ukraine are trying to sabotage America's peace deal. There is no peace deal. They're doing exactly what Secretary Hegseth told them to do back in February. They told them, get your troops ready. You're going into Ukraine. You're the next one online into the wood chipper, our proxy war with Russia. And so that's what they're doing. And so that's what they're doing. They know Russia's going to reject it. They've set the stage, hopefully, to convince more people than not that it's Russia's fault. They'll say, look, we made such a great deal. We gave them everything they wanted. We said, no, NATO. Nobody who's informed believes that they will stick to that agreement. We're letting them keep all of the territory. It's a deal too good for them to reject unless they are just bent on war. And that's how they're going to frame it. That is how they are framing it. And when the negotiations predictably collapse because they're disingenuous, the U.S. will say, it's Russia's fault, Europe go in, and if Russia attacks Europe, it's because they're bloodthirsty warmongers, and we'll do whatever we have to do to support Europe, who's going to get fed into the wood chipper as we work on Iran and China.
That's called a nuclear war, if the U.S. attacks Europe in this. And I love the wood chipper term, because that's what it is. They're going to die. They're going to get shot in the face and die. Ukraine had the largest military in Europe and lost, with U.S. direction, literally picking out battle plans, strategy, all of this stuff, and they lost. And so if the Europeans are going to be stupid enough to throw their citizens to get shot and killed by Russians, okay, fair enough. Good luck with that, right? I mean, it's so absurd. And I will tell you, the U.S. has zero credibility in this, meaning if you're right, there is a lack of self-perception that is mind-blowing. Do they honestly believe that the other countries around the world are going to look at this and think, well, the U.S. is an honest actor who believes in love and light, and they're just seeking peace? They're not. I don't think they are. Maybe American citizens, maybe European citizens, but they're brainwashed. Russia doesn't care. Look, man, I am at the point where I think they are beyond caring what the West thinks. From their point of view, these are territories, we're going to take them. That's it. If you're going to put your military in, your military is going to die, and we're going to keep taking the territories. And we may, if necessary, go to the border of Poland in order to fill the gaps. There will be no gaps. That is our plan. That is our strategy that has evolved from what started as a limited special military operation. If the U.S. and if Europe doesn't know that, and they are stupid enough to take on a battle-hardened military that's going to swell to like 1 million men that has been killing and dying for 3 years, oh God, they're out of their minds. Like, this plan is insane. And the notion that the U.S. is going to do what? What is the U.S. going to do? Are they going to come in? They're going to send in American troops back into Europe for a larger war? Okay, that's a nuclear war. That's what I'm saying. This plan it's detached from reality. In the sense that Russia is going to accept this. And by the way, Putin does the same thing. He's like, I will look at the plan, I'll see what it does, and blah, blah, blah. And then you get Medvedev, his anger coach, who comes out and gives the real point of view of the Kremlin, yes. Right? It's like, if Europeans want to die for so-and-so, then God bless them, we'll murder all of them. Like, he's the guy who gives you the honest take, whereas Putin is the polite one. He's the diplomatic one. He's the guy who's, well, I'm always into diplomacy, even if they're not really entirely caring, in this case, about the diplomacy that the West is coming with. That's just astonishing to me. Look, I may even agree with you on this. I don't. You have a darker lens than I think I do on this. I accept the Hegseth thing. Europe is following script, so fair enough. Yeah, it's just wild to me. This is absurd on its face that they would accept this premise, please.
Yes, well, look at what the U.S. convinced Ukraine to do. It's self-destruction. And now they're going to do the exact same thing for the rest of Europe. The US has no intention of getting involved. Secretary Hegseth in February said, we're not going to be involved. There's no Article 5. You're going in there. You're just the next ones. You're our next proxy. And you can almost predict what will happen. I think they will try to do everything short of some kind of nuclear exchange. I mean, if the US is not involved, how does Russia justify carrying out a strike on the United States? But if there's even a nuclear exchange between Europe and Russia, for the United States, they're looking at their empire disappearing forever, irreversibly, and they will do almost anything to gain it back. And they're looking at this in the same frame of mind as they looked at World War II. It is a huge opportunity to have everyone destroy themselves all across Eurasia. We'll be safe and sound. We have 2 oceans between us on either side of our coast. Let them fight in Europe. Let's trigger a war in the Middle East, get Israel, which has nuclear weapons, have them flatten Iran, have everyone kill each other there, and let's trigger a war with China and have Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines all fall on their swords, and the separatists on Taiwan. And then in their mind, on the other side of that conflict, they come out in the best position to reassert global
There's one
dominance,
flaw
which is what this is
in
all
that
about.
logic. And the flaw in that logic is that Putin pointed out early on, we have the capability of hitting you. And we know that you're the inspiration to this, meaning you're not safe on your coast. You may think you are, but you are not. And I can't believe that Russia would get into a nuclear exchange with Europe, not realizing that the US is the motivator behind them doing so. Like, I understand the point, right? It's like, because I've made this point too, that the US is willing to effectively use Europe in the same way to use Ukraine. That if a war breaks out, they would have Europe as being the fall guy for that war and throw them into the mix with us being safe. Agreed. I don't know if Russia would accept that premise. That's the only thing I have with that. Because otherwise, you've effectively allowed the US to remain the last man standing and destroy your country. And they know that the US was the main driver in that war for Ukraine, meaning they know, even if they don't acknowledge it openly, because they'll be stuck with the acknowledgement, they know that Americans have been killing Ukrainians, as killing Russians. They know it. Whatever that number is, 100,000, 200,000, they know. And so would that be the moment where the world ends? Not to mention China is not going to allow, oh God, this would be chaos. Like China is not going to allow that to take place. And the US can come up. Hegseth, by the way, is also the guy that said China could flatten our carriers in 15 minutes, flat. And he's right. Like this, I don't think they think they're too bright for their own good. And I don't think this plan is going to work out in a way that they think it is. I agree with you that Europe will get put into the wood chipper. That's assuming those governments survive the political turmoil that they are going through now. I don't believe that the US is going to be blissfully away from all of it. I think they also will get hit in the conflict, especially if they're going to get into conflict with China. That's just nuclear war. Like, you can't win a nuclear war, because that was always my premise. You need to do any and everything up to the point of a nuclear war. And if you can be below it, and you can come out on top, you won. If all of us die, all of us die. It doesn't matter. Tell me what I'm wrong with that. Please.
No, I think you're right. I think that's their plan. Their plan is to do everything up to, but not some sort of nuclear exchange. I don't think that they would. But just war game it out in your mind. If Europe were to say, well, Russia's wiping us out, they're actually striking targets in our borders, within our borders, to wipe out our military-industrial base, and we're going to launch nuclear. Maybe tactical nuclear weapons or something like that against Russian positions, maybe not Moscow, but something like that. How do you go from that to Russia launching nukes and wiping out the United States? I get in theory what you mean, and obviously the US is behind all of this, but how does Russia go from that to now we're going to do a full-out nuclear exchange with the US, who will return fire?
A tactical nuke is just a nuke. I don't make a distinction between a tactical nuke and a nuclear weapon. And the moment that you start using nukes, you started using nukes, right? I guess the way I frame it in my mind in this is ultimately Russia, the US, from my point of view, there's knowledge, like meta knowledge, that goes beyond the chum that goes into the conversation of newspapers and whatnot. In that meta knowledge, they know as a flat fact that the US was involved in this plan to kill Russians. And again, Putin has already pointed out, you're not safe. Like this notion that you're going to be blissfully away, you're not safe. We can hit you. And I don't think he's saying that rhetorically. I think he's saying that in a true sense of the word, if you keep pushing, which would be the US pushing in this case, I think this would be chaos. I think this would be like, especially if the US takes this position where they're going after China and Russia and China are working in tandem with one another. Okay, then right off the bat, you effectively have a world war again. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, who the hell knows where Turkey is on one side. And every target is fair game. That's the way I see it in my mind. When I look at this and think to myself, how does this fall out? I don't believe for a moment that China would allow Russia to fall. I just don't. And if Hegseth is stuck, please.
No, I was just going to say, but let's just imagine that it doesn't come to any sort of nuclear exchange. That's the absolute worst case scenario. Right, and even that brings up it brings up a debate whether or not there would be an exchange between Russia, China, and the U.S. If you read the policy papers, they really do believe they can fight a war with China, a limited war that neither side wants to escalate to nuclear, and we already see them putting other pieces together to this puzzle. So they want to start a conflict with China, to then just like they did with Russia, to then justify even more drastic measures against China to isolate China, and we see them taking over the Panama Canal. Right. Talking about annexing Greenland. They have a global spanning navy. They will attempt to blockade, interdict, seize Chinese maritime shipping worldwide beyond the reach of China's navy. China's navy is incapable of spanning the globe and countering this. So they know that at this moment, they have that advantage. 10, 20 years from now, they will not have this advantage. This is why everything is accelerating. And we're seeing things that are so insane, like these tariffs. These you don't do tariffs like this when you're trying to reindustrialize your economy. That's the pretext you sell it to the public with. You do this when you're preparing for war. So this is what they're doing. This is what their policy papers have been talking about. This is what each administration has been preparing for incrementally over since the turn of this 21st century, actually.
The tariff thing, this is, I guess, what I mean by the US media. Like, it is so outlandish. And the only thing they think is Trump is incompetent. And because Trump is incompetent, he's just doing tariffs like this. As opposed to Trump is walling off America. He's, he's trying to, he sees what happened to Europe, right? The deindustrialization of Europe at the point where the war started with Russia. He's like, okay, we don't want that to happen to us. We need to wall ourselves off. And his way of doing it is keep Chinese goods out of the US. We need to suffer now for a war later. He's going to be dead in 3 years, though. I mean, look, from my point of view, that multiple versions of this take. It could be a darker version. It could be a version not as dark. I don't know which one it is. On Iran, I tend to view the darker version of this, just because there's been a through line of trying to destroy the Middle East. I agree with you that if you think back to the Second World War, it wasn't that America was exceptional. It was that Europe had been destroyed. China had been destroyed. Japan had been destroyed. So we were the only game in town in regards to products. Would it shock me, a person who says life doesn't matter, when you're gaming out these kind of strategic choices, if they decide to use Europe as cannon fodder with the idea of creating a similar pretext, destroy the Middle East, destroy Europe.
And Asia.
Yeah, and Asia. But see, I'm more skeptical of the China thing. The reason I'm more skeptical of China, I think that's going to be harder to do than they may think it is in the policy papers. You could be right. It could fall exactly the way, you say it is. But reality is different. And reality doesn't necessarily play by people's thoughts in regards to this is how this turns out. It's what they try. And then reality hits, right? I don't know, man. It's dark, to put it mildly. And that does... No, please.
Just to add to that, though, we have to all keep in mind, and I think this is part of what you're trying to say is that Russia and China are aware of this. They know this. You can look at Russian and Chinese restraint. They know it's a trap. Iranian restraint. I always see people online, people who are well-meaning but ill-informed and don't really understand how these things work, complaining about why doesn't Iran just wipe Israel off the map? Why don't they just, because it's a trap. That they're trying to spring this trap. They're trying to wipe out Eurasia so that the U.S. is, like you said, the only game in town. They know this. And they are preparing for it. They are reacting to it with this in mind. I think you're right as well. I think it will be very hard to deliver this knockout blow they imagine they can deliver to China. China is, if you ever go there, it's just so huge. It's so vast. There's a population larger than the G7 combined. Hardworking people, increasingly well-educated people, a huge industrial base. How do you destroy all of that? How do you do that? And we watched with COVID, we watched what was, whether it was by coincidence or by design, almost like a dry run. What happens when you turn everything upside down? Who comes out on the other side stronger? China did. So now you're going to do this again with actual warfare. Who's going to come out on top again?
The industrial base of China is ungodly. Like, I have never seen anything like it. Like, China by itself can fund, like, basically supply the world with everything that it needs. Like, it is astonishingly big. I agree with you on that. And I also agree with you, in 20 years, the horse is out the barn.
Yes.
And it may be out the barn now. Like, yeah, they may not have the ships and everything else, but with an industrial capacity where they're building this stuff so fast, it's, look, that is a dark vision that could totally be right. Like, when, what is it? Mika's dad, I'm missing the name, what is it, Zabrezhny or whatever his name is. When he's making these plans for...
Zbigniew Brzezinski.
Yeah, it's something like that. The name always screws with me. When he's making these war plans to try to get Russia bogged down in Afghanistan, he doesn't care about the people of Afghanistan. He doesn't care that they're going to get killed. He doesn't care about the Russians that are going to get killed. It's just, we need to bog them down into Vietnam. That's it. That's all. That's the mechanics, right? Human life doesn't matter in these plans. It's just amazing to me. It's dark because otherwise we're stuck with Donald Trump is radically incompetent on tariffs. He knows nothing about monetary policy, which he probably doesn't. The U.S. is taking a massive hit for a policy that makes no sense in the real world. He is just stuck with William McKinley's book, and he's just running the script from William McKinley's book. Like, that's what we're stuck with. If not, there's a larger objective at work.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that. I mean, the thing is, presidents are slightly different, but my thing is always, there seems to be a through line. Like, this is the Putin thing, right? Where he's like, a man shows up in a black suit, opens a suitcase and says, this is what you need to do. This is why you need to do it or else. And they follow script just all the way through. And let's be honest, the U.S. has this thing in its mind about primacy. We must remain on top at all costs, because if not, we are going to be subjugated by the Chinese and the other people of the world. Like, this is in our minds, right? And so if that is in your mind, when you're operating in the world itself, okay, you may do a Trans-Pacific Partnership where you try to pivot to China. They just keep getting bogged down in the Middle East. Like, they just can't get out of their own way to actually make that pivot to the Pacific. It's just fascinating to me.
And there's a lot of factors, and I've listened to other guests that have appeared on your show. Yeah. And
thank you. I appreciate that.
No, but they've laid out very well why the tariffs at face value make absolutely no sense, and they're absolutely correct. But what if it isn't for all of these reasons? What if it is to prepare for this conflict? And it starts to make a lot of sense. And you're talking about how Trump is incompetent. He doesn't know anything about anything. You can just tell when he talks. He has no idea what he's just repeating what people have told him. That's why I implore people to please dig into the policy papers. Project 2025, which was published in 2023, has almost line by line everything the Biden administration before it and now the Trump administration in office today are implementing, including getting rid of the Department of Education, consolidating control over all these regime change tools under the State Department directly, and tariffs, clobbering the whole planet over the head with these tariffs, to not to reindustrialize, to maintain American dominance. And literally the first sentence in the chapter on trade and tariffs talks all about how we need to maintain American dominance. So that is what they're doing.
But see, right there, this is not maintaining American dominance. This damages America. It damages our industries. People are getting fired. The amount of money, like we're going through stagflation, hell, if not a Great Depression. That article that's coming out in the Wall Street Journal, where they're effectively saying, look, this is the worst market crash since the Great Depression. That's an astonishing article. That's going to be on the front page. This is not to our benefit. I guess this is kind of my point about reality coming into play. I don't know if that policy paper projected, okay, well, China is going to get involved in a trade war with the US when Trump stumbles into this. Trump is not going to be able to extricate himself out of it. And we're going to be at the worst end of it, where he is going to have to lump together with other countries and effectively beg them to work with him to go after China. Like that horse is. Let me ask you this. I've always made this argument that they're a canary in the coal mines in regards to world-changing events. Ukraine losing in Russia, from my point of view, is a world-changing event in regards to a military organization that was set up for 50 years. That sole purpose was to take down the Soviet Union. And it falls apart. Soviet Union falls apart. The beating heart of it, Russia, by itself, beats the organization. That's an astonishing thing to me. And I don't think we've kind of accommodated what that means. We just moved on. And he moves on to, I'm insecure and I need to flex economic might. Because it could be one of two things, right? It could be Trump being Trump, believing America can do this. Reading, like you said, the paper from line one, tariffs is the way to dominate the world and to get everybody in line. And the world doesn't necessarily fall in line. Instead, what you get is China going around from country to country, organizing the global south, trying to get Europe to lump in order to effectively punish the US for it. Now, will the US be able to keep Europe in line on this? I don't know. Will Europe feel some kind of way that Trump is damaging their economy? And this is after the Ukraine war has already damaged their economy with money fleeing out of Europe. I don't know. Like, these are unknowns to me. But that policy paper, or at the very least that first line, I don't think it didn't take that into consideration. It assumed that America would be able to dominate the world with this. And America is not able to dominate the world with this. Our markets are falling apart. The dollar is utterly collapsing. The stock market is losing its mind. That is not taking place in China. That is not taking place in Russia.
I agree.
Wrong. I want you to tell me if I'm wrong.
I agree. America as a nation is being trampled by this. When in your intro, you were talking about how the billionaires, they're the ones that are going to be okay through all of this. This is, to them, this is hard medicine that's going to make them sick. It begins killing their body, but they believe that they can kill the disease first before they themselves die. This is the mentality that they have here.
It's like chemotherapy.
Exactly. And will they get Europe to go along? Of course. They're doing a high dive headfirst into the wood chipper, a proxy war with Ukraine. Of course, they're going to go along with the tariffs and war with China and anything else. This is what's dangerous. Again, many excellent guests point out that none of these policies serve the best interests of these countries the U.S. is coercing to adopt them. The problem is political capture. When you politically capture a country and you put a client regime in place, they answer to Washington at the cost of that particular country. We have just watched this process run almost full course in Ukraine, destroying the country almost brick by brick. And look at what it has already done to Europe before even becoming more directly involved in the proxy war. It's already cost Europe so much, and they're ready for more. Japan, South Korea, even though there's some pushback, they're still hurting themselves. They are still in terminal decline because of this political capture and the policies they are coerced into adopting. The Philippines is rushing to become, Asia's Ukraine, which is insane. It's completely insane. I've been to the Philippines the people are so nice, so hardworking, great people, but they have a huge population, much bigger than here in Thailand. Their GDP is much smaller. And this is a product of being politically captured and used for Washington, not for the Philippines. And will they go, despite it being completely against their best interests, into some sort of confrontation or even conflict with China? Yes, that is the danger of political capture. That's why over the years I've talked so much about the National Endowment for Democracy, the way they insidiously, incrementally, over many, many years, work their way into a country, infect the media, the education system. So even when you have a political party in power that does not answer to Washington, they're still able to persuade the public to go along with Washington's objectives against their own best interest. They can convince the public to go against their own best interest. So the multipolar world is. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Please continue. No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
One last thing. The multipolar world is working on ways to defend itself from this war the U.S. is waging against it. That is what all of this is. From Ukraine to Iran to China, the tariffs, everything. It is a war on multipolarism.
Yeah.
They are coming up with collective ways to defend themselves. But the one factor that I think is missing is fully exposing and confronting the soft power the United States uses to, again, insidiously infect and politically capture a targeted nation. That is the biggest danger multipolarism faces today, I believe.
No, I think you have a good point. Like, when they got rid of Sputnik and RT in Europe, just bam, just gone. And Joe Biden did this kind of end run in order to get rid of Sputnik here in the States. And it's like, these are tiny outlets. What are you doing? Like,
Yes.
like, you know, like my listeners, we have 634 people here. Sputnik might have gotten 200. right? Like live viewers, they might have gotten 200. I don't know how many on the radio thing. But the U.S. was in this mindset of we need to remove them. They're affecting Africa. They're stopping people from joining into the Ukraine war. That's like, dude, you guys are lunatics. This tiny outlet is not doing that. Maybe in Europe, because Germany had a much higher proportion of it, and you had other countries, not here in the States. And yet, it was still too much, which gets across your point. This infectious nature of media, how it infects a person's mindset. It makes it think like, this is the news. This is reality. It conforms your reality to whatever they're reporting. And if you don't know that National Endowment for Democracy or USAID is covering like 70 or 80% of the media in Ukraine, or X amount of the media in Europe, or X amount of the media in these other countries, then you're effectively being subversively infected with a thought virus. So
Yes.
1,000% agree with you on this. Like, it is insidious in the way that stuff works, but they do it because it does work. It's that.
Yes.
It's just fascinating. Like, it is so dark. And I know, look, I am open to multiple viewpoints on this stuff because as a flat fact, I don't know, nor do I know how reality affects a plane. When Germany was doing one of their, I forget the maneuver that they were effectively doing. And one of the most important components of the German military in the Second World War had to do something. They had whatever this, they had to do it. And they got bogged down in the mud and weren't able to progress to the next step of the plan. Okay, nobody plans for that. That is a weird thing, right? I chase a cab as it pulls away, fall off of part of a cliff, spraining my ankle, spraining my arm, gets hit in the head, cell phone breaks. There's no plan for that. You are literally putting to a plan. I'm going to save money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to save on rent. And then that happens, $600, $700, up in smoke. You don't plan for that. Like, meaning, I accept that this may be war planners. I also accept that other countries, on some level, are smart enough to know, okay, these guys are trying to defend the primacy, regardless of what they say, regardless of what they do. They're trying to defend primacy. When Putin says, we believe Trump, we trust him. No, they don't.
No, they don't. I don't think that they do.
No, but it's what you said, right? It's like diplomacy. People want to look civil. Like, one of the things I've always asked is why pretend that you are a nice person when you're not. Like, meaning, if U.S. policy, like this goes back to like Ronald Reagan, right? When the Gipper comes out for the Iran-Contra affair. And the public was shocked when Reagan pointed out, yeah, we were selling weapons to Iran in order to fund Contras to go after the Sandinista governments. We were paying for kill squads. They were killing people left and right. I'm the Gipper. I didn't know anything about it. So, there's that. And the public was like, oh my God, we're America. We're not supposed to be doing that. And it's like, you stupid idiots. We've been doing it the entire time.
For like a century already. Yes.
Yeah. It's a fascinating thing. But part of the reason you do that is because you don't want to be seen as that guy. Like, there is political capital in not being seen in doing the nasty stuff that you're actually doing. And you push this stuff away into the dark. And you take on this thing of, I'm wearing a suit. I have this awesome thing. I'm a fantastic person. It helps you politically, which is the reason why they effectively do it. They don't do this stuff shallow. Now, I'm fascinated by this stuff. And I think, look, on some level, man, I think you're right. It's too comically ridiculous for God. Weirdly enough, I almost hope you're right. Because otherwise, it's so stupid. Like it is so deeply incompetent.
Yes.
All of this. Like, if indeed it is what it is, I just have to believe there's a larger rationale for it that is not being disclosed to the public, which is reason why, that was my first question. Dude, what the hell is going on? What's the world? Why is he doing this? This makes no sense. He knows they're going to turn that deal down. He knows it. As a flat fact, he has to know.
You know what's scarier is that I absolutely agree with you about political capital. The thing that is scary is that under the Trump administration, the way they're using his ability to manipulate the public, you can see part of his support base is absolutely on board with America just being a global thug. Hey, let's take Greenland, let's take Canada. People hear this and they don't immediately think he is insane and he has to be stopped. If that's not the first thing that you think, you've been hooked. And they have convinced you to go along with something that should otherwise destroy political capital. The other thing that is scary is I have people saying, Brian, you're totally wrong. Trump got rid of NED, got rid of it. And all of these other things, Voice of America, Radio Free Asia. I see the political party that the U.S. backs walking up and down my street for local elections. Like right now, I'm like, people are telling me this and I'm saying, I'm looking out my window literally and I see them in front of my house. So no.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They put it in the State Department, right?
Yeah, yes, it's all consolidated under the State Department, and this is what makes it scary. It's still there, but now it has been covered up. People are convinced that it's gone, but it has been streamlined, sharpened, consolidated, and it is still being wielded. We were just talking about how it's one of their most effective tools. Why would they ever voluntarily give it up? They wouldn't.
So I have mixed feelings about that because, truth be told, Trump is losing political capital also. Like, if you are Obama, you glow, right, in the sunlight. Like, Obama has a way of just glowing in the sunlight.
No matter what he says.
It's just who he is, right?
We kill some folks.
Right.
Right.
Right. We torture some folks. But even that, we tortured some folks. He's, in a folksy way, talking about breaking people. And the media accepts it. Trump is grotesque in the way that he presents. Like, meaning, I had on, what is his name? Joe, it'll come to me in a moment. But he was talking about, like, Trump is the best face of a dying empire. Like, he's the best villain for this empire. I agree with you about the political capital thing, but I kind of don't. And let me explain why, especially as it pertains to Trump. If you're a liberal, you're okay with Obama murdering an American citizen. You're not outraged by it. If you're a liberal, you would be perfectly okay with what's taking place in Gaza if Joe Biden is your president. Perfectly okay. You would even keep people off the stage talking about it with like 70% of your party being against you on it. You'll run with it and you'll defend it. And if Kamala Harris got elected, she would do the exact same thing that Trump is doing, maybe minus the poor Republic. I can go down the list for this stuff. You're okay in starting a war that gets hundreds of thousands of people killed, and you would back that war, and you would continue to back that war. Meaning that grotesque behavior and that slavish, cultish devotion to a political institution, it's not just MAGA. It's not. Maybe Joe Biden or Obama would never say, we're going to take Greenland, because, Obama does this stuff in the shadows. But Trump loses political capital externally. Like, that's the issue, right? When we're talking about other political figures who are doing this stuff in the dark while trying to maintain this air of, I'm a peacemaker, I believe in democracy, I believe in so-and-so, that's not Trump. He's not that guy. Like, he's the guy that decided to have a trade war with the world. He's the guy that sent Vance out to wag the finger at Europe, to browbeat them and basically call them vassals. Vance literally said in an interview, said, I don't care what Europe thinks. I don't care. We don't care. We're taking Greenland. Okay, that's not political capital in the way that we're talking about it with typical politicians who under no circumstances will want to be seen in that light. Trump doesn't seem to care. And so his base, yes, they would have slavish devotion to him. I agree with you. The notion that, but see, from my point of view, it's not about fairness. It's not about morality. It's not about ethics. It's about power. Can you do something or not? That's it. And supporters will lump in with you on that if you can do it in the way that they're lumping in with Trump, or in the way that they would lump in and say Joe Biden is sharp as a tack. Every time I see him, he's on it. He has hard sex with his wife. He's a great guy. And he's like, okay, dude, come on. Are you serious right now? It's like we saw the debate. What are you talking about? He doesn't have that. He's like, Europe hates him like with a burning passion. I would imagine the other nations also at this point, especially with the tariff war, hate his guts. He loses capital for America in this notion of freedom and justice for whatever that we have left from the standpoint of the genocide. What is your take on that? Is it that, okay, well, they don't care in a sense, meaning this plan is going forward and we need somebody who acts like this in order to push this through, because you can't really do this with an Obama. Obama would never do this, right? That's not his shtick. He would do a TPP where he would sell out the sovereignty of the United States. But to be as ogreish to say, I'm taking Greenland, he's not that guy. But give me your take on that, because that does break the model on some level, unless that is, he's the guy that you just need that guy to do that.
Exactly. He's the villain. He's the guy the United States, the deep state, needs to do these things. They have it in decade-spanning policy papers that they were going to do all of this. Yeah. They need a villain to do this. And as he's doing it, America can say, well, this isn't us. This is Trump. Trump is doing this. And when he's gone after 4 years, we flush all of these bad memories down the toilet with his administration, which is what they did with, this is what Trump did with Biden. He helped prepare and provoke the war in Ukraine, but now he's dumping it all on Biden and flushing it down the toilet when he was going out of office. So this is the beauty of, the US is not a democracy. There are no two parties. There is the deep state, and it runs this theater specifically so that every 4 years they get to reset, start with a clean sheet of paper, maintain credibility worldwide, because they'll just say, that wasn't America, that was Trump. And Trump is now out of office, and now we have whoever the next showman is. And it works, because I see here in Thailand the people here, their perception of America more or less stays the same. Whatever the propaganda is pushing, that is what they're buying. Which is why I always go back to countries need to protect their information space, because that propaganda, not the reality of what is actually taking place in the US and around the world because of the US, it's the propaganda that is shaping minds, not their actual actions. That's the unfortunate part of this system they have set up because of how effective it is in doing this.
Brian, you are fascinating. And I deeply appreciate this conversation. I love conversations like this. I hope the audience enjoys conversations like this, because I love it. I have two minds of this. I know sometimes when events happen that they seem imposed, like there seems purpose in events that may take place. It's not always purpose. And so I do have two minds of this in regards to, okay, it could be this worst version of things that is terrifying, because I think we're all going to die. Or it could be this other version where these people are, at some level, idiots, but at the same token, trying to do some of this stuff. Like, meaning, I see it in the spectrum. But I can't entirely quibble with the framing of it, if that makes sense. It fits together as a cohesive narrative. Brian, man, I always love these conversations. You're welcome here anytime. Thank you for this, man. I really appreciate it. And just for the audience to know, Brian, there it is, Brian Berletic. And for whatever particular reason, my system is freezing on me. There we go. Brian Berletic. He is host of the New Atlas. Check that show out. That show is fantastic. He gives massively great breakdowns. Bangkok-based geopolitical researcher and writer, former Marine. Have a good one, man. You be safe, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Alrighty. Oh, I enjoyed that conversation. And I'm going to enjoy this one also. The man himself, Esteban Carrillo. I can roll my R's now. I've practiced that. Believe it or not. Yes, I have. Esteban, man, welcome to the show. Esteban, just for the audience knows him. He's an Ecuadorian journalist, currently writing for The Cradle, previously with Hello Sir English. Welcome back. It has been a while since I've seen you. My phone has been broken. I've been without it. I've been stranded in some level. So I'm glad to have you. And by the way, I've been thanking people. I've just hit my 50K subs. And I have been giving personal thanks, but I've also been giving thanks on the show for people who have been consistent and stuck with me the entire way through. And you have been one of those people. And I deeply appreciate it. Your take, your analysis, your time that you offer me, all of those things. It is deeply and immensely appreciated. Thank you, my man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamarl, and congratulations. And thank you to everyone tuning in.
Yeah, I mean, as I keep pointing out about Jeff Bezos, if Jeff Bezos comes up with an idea, sits in a room, he's going to be in the room by himself. He doesn't have people around him to make that work. Yeah. And if it wasn't for people like you, the audience, this would be, one man staring in the void, screaming into the void. I want to start with Ecuador before I move on to another topic.
Yeah, sure thing.
I hit Camilla up, I think it was a couple of days ago. And I said, Camilla, there's chaos going on in Ecuador. I have fondness for it. I traveled there, God, man, it was like maybe a decade ago at this point. I was working at a completely different company. I was doing software. I went there for kind of like a mini vacation. I loved the place. The people were exceptionally nice. And one of the cab drivers even gave me a little trinket, like a little gift as I was leaving, saying, hey, remember me? Remember us? This was, I love that place. The Quito and the climate, like the height, is a bit challenging at times, especially when you go further up into the mountains where you're like,
it's difficult.
Yeah, but the people, the place, I loved it. So it kills me when I go somewhere and I love it, that it goes into chaos. Yeah. And that's what it seems like Ecuador has gone into political chaos in one sense. There was a potential murder, or there was the murder, I think, when we were on the show, we were talking about just astonishing stuff. What is going on? And could you give us a summary of what is happening in Ecuador and why?
I'll try my best because unfortunately, in Ecuador, the news cycle is less than 24 hours. Like whatever happened yesterday is already old news because something's happening today. It's constant chaos. It's literally constant chaos. The most recent development, of course, is the victory, disputed, sometimes some people calling it fraudulent victory, of Daniel Noboa, right? The current president of Ecuador, the Miami-born 37-year-old heir to the country's biggest fortune, a billionaire kid, completely. He wins. He defeats the leftist candidate Luisa Gonzalez a week ago, on the 13th of April, in, like I said, fraudulent results. There's no way, because here's what happens, right? Up to the day of the election, many violations by Noboa. I'm not going to get into all the details, but many violations of several laws in the Constitution, of the Electoral Code. No fines, nothing. The man just does as he wishes. All of the authorities are like, put up their hands, and they're like, well, I guess he does what he wishes. And then the election day comes. Up to that point, 11 different tracking polls and opinion polls were talking about a neck-and-neck race, right? Like 1 point, 2 point difference maximum. And most of them actually gave Gonzalez, right, the leftist candidate who represents the Citizens Revolution Party, they gave her the victory. Election day comes, Noboa wins with a 12-point difference. Gonzalez doesn't grow by anything, right? At the first round of the election, because this was the runoff, in the first round, they are essentially tied, like 17,000 point difference. Remember, Ecuador is a country of 18 million. So 17,000 is nothing to say, So it makes, a statistical, it's impossible for the second round for Gonzalez to grow like 60,000 votes and for Noboa to grow 1.5 million votes. Even after Gonzalez gets the support of like 5 different other parties, for the first time ever, the Citizens' Revolution get the support of the indigenous movements, of the indigenous parties. They say we cannot vote for the right because this country is a disaster. Jamarlt, in March alone, just this March 2025, 830 homicides. Since January 1st until March 31st, nearly 2,500 homicides. You're talking about an average of 26 homicides per day. More people getting killed per hour, more than one person per hour, essentially. And so that's the reality of Ecuador currently. A few months ago, we had a blackouts that ran up to 14 hours per day. We've had, like I said, Noboa, just like if to list his corruption scandals, it would really, we would need like the entire program. He persecutes opponents. He deported journalists. He exiled his vice president to Israel. He, at the day after his victory, a list appears in immigration. Like somebody leaks this list of over 100 opposition figures, journalists critical of the government, political advisors, anybody involved with the Citizens' Revolution, or just simply critical of the government, like
creating a dictatorship.
It's already a dictatorship. It's already
eliminating political opponents.
Yeah,
you're eliminating.
In fact, like what I told you about these elections, I think is kind of was like the coup de grace. It was just like he's showing how much power he has. Because, like I said, not the courts, not the Attorney General's office, not the any institution that has any power, of oversight, is willing to confront them. Everybody falls, everybody accepts, because everybody's getting a piece of the pie, right? Like at this point, this is what Ecuador is. And who is suffering? Well, the people who have to deal with 26 murders per day on average. And not to talk about, the destruction of the entire political energy system, the communication, the roads. Like you said, you went to Ecuador 10 years ago. It's paradise. The second safest country in Latin America.
It was.
Yeah, like I'm sure you if you went up to the mountains, if you went down to the Amazon, you were driving, right? You were being taken in these roads that were in perfectly good shape, just like connecting the countries so that commerce and tourism could take place. Now you can't. Now everything's it's destroyed. It's really, really, this election cycle, like every election cycle and like most election cycles in Latin America in particular, the big talking point from the right, the US-backed right, is we're going to become Venezuela. You vote for the left, we're going to become Venezuela, right? We don't want to become Venezuela. Right now, Ecuador wishes it was Venezuela. Right now, Ecuador, you're talking more like a situation like Haiti. We're a hair's breadth away from turning into a complete chaos, anarchic state. Eric Prince is already being deployed to Ecuador. He's going to bring his mercenaries to deal with the insecurity. So when I make the comparison to Haiti, I'm not being facetious. I'm not just exaggerating. I'm being completely honest. Ecuador, in the next 4 years under Daniel Noboa, is going to become a completely, collapsed state that is just where, the rich can live because they have their own security and because they're, of course, in business with all of the narcos, because this is at the heart of everything, right? The drug trade has completely taken over, not just Ecuador, not just the ports, the government itself, the armed forces, the police. These are all gangs at this point. So, yeah, when I say Haiti, when I say Libya, when I say Syria, it's a very apt comparison.
Oh, that sucks to hear. That really does. Because when I think of that stuff, I think of the people who, it's like, you meet people along the way. Like I remember going, I went to like this park. I was looking for chess, effectively. And just, safe, no issue. I ended up talking to the people who were there that they were playing. They ended up playing checkers. That sucks. That just sucks to hear. That's all. I just wanted to run down to know how bad it was. And I guess
it's bad. It's bad, and it's gonna get worse. And it's gonna get worse. And hopefully we can continue to talk about it. Because like I said, the news cycle is really absurd. The people cannot focus on the thing that happened yesterday because something horrible is probably already happened today. Before since I connected with you.
Esteban, I want to move to Trump for a moment.
Sure.
And the Iran talks. Now, the reason I want to move to it, do you think this is a bluff? Do you think he would actually attack? Israel apparently is prepping for an attack under the notion that the talks will fail. Trump has sent Witkoff. I mean, if you take it on its face value, Witkoff seems to be the realist out of the group, where you sideline many people in the State Department, and he keeps using Witkoff over and over and over and over again. By the same token, he's surrounded himself by lunatics, whack jobs, Zionists. For example, when you get like Hegseth, for example, who again signal leak stuff is just outlandish. Many of these people, Huckabee believes Jesus is going to return at some point in Israel. Like, these are the people that he's put into his cabinet. All of these people are agitating for war. Ryan Grimm broke the story that the National Security Council person that Donald Trump is putting in effectively right here worked inside the Israeli Ministry of Defense. So you are putting somebody, this is as bad as Joe Biden. And that's why when people say, oh, Donald Trump is something different. If you remember, Joe Biden sent the representative from Lebanon, who was an IDF soldier, as Israel was bombing Lebanon. So this is not a departure from the way that these guys have behaved. So don't give me this shit about, oh my God, Donald Trump is doing something radically different in this case. He is effectively putting an IDF soldier in his cabinet to overlook Iran-Israel issues. All of these people around him want the U.S. to effectively go to war on behalf of Israel.
Yes.
How does Trump, who has rhetorically boxed himself into this position of, if they don't do this within a certain time, I'm going to bomb them, is that purely for the optics of, well, I tried to negotiate before I go on a bombing run and effectively destroy the world economy? Or is he serious? See, the problem that I have is I don't know what is in his mind. And because I don't know what is in his mind, I don't know what he's trying to actually do.
I often feel that even he doesn't really know, what's on his mind.
Not? He changes, last person who's in the room.
Yeah. So, there's interesting, honestly, what's been happening with the Iran talks, because of everything you just described. The last thing we heard is that apparently the Iranian side is surprised at the seriousness of the U.S. side, at the fact that they haven't made they haven't crossed any red lines in their demands. Right? Iran's red lines are their missile program, are reducing their uranium, the enriched uranium they already have, dismantling their nuclear program. They said that's simply it. That's not going to happen, because remember at one time they were talking about the Libya model. We don't know how the Libya model ended. So, of course, Iran is going to say no. And they are also saying the 2015 deal, right, the Obama-era Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, is no longer any good to us. This can no longer even be the basis for anything. Because obviously it's been 10 years and then 7 years since since Trump unilaterally pulled out, left Iran, and the European Union essentially holding the bags there. And they actually tried to revive it, remember? Like, for years, they were trying to revive it without the US. And the EU simply was not willing to make any concessions at the end of the day. So now...
Wait, real quick. The European Union couldn't carry the burden. Like, I distinctly remember when Trump pulled out, the thought in the White House was, Europe can't cover the costs that basically the sanction costs. Europe can't do it. They don't have the economy or the economic power in order to cover all of the expenses and businesses. Because their first thought was, okay, well, we'll cover these businesses so they can continue to do this. They found out that they couldn't do it. I think Total Oil might have been covered or something like that, but they couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, and we know that the European Union doesn't really like to do anything without first, getting the seal of approval from Washington. So I think that's also what happened there. But so the talks have been going. We're headed to a third round on Saturday, this coming Saturday. On Wednesday, tomorrow, the technical teams are actually going to meet to discuss the framework for a potential deal. And of course, Israel is fuming, right? You see it. On Saturday, when as these talks are taking place, right after the talks take place, and they are talking about how positive they were, etc. Netanyahu puts out this recorded message in which he says, "Well, I will never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and I don't care, etc., etc." And then there's the reports, of course, about we're gonna go hit Iran even if the U.S. doesn't back us, because what they say. So I wouldn't put it past them. Honestly,
real quick, that story is weird, because that's, even in that story, it's like, well, we'll hit them even if the U.S. They still need U.S. help. The story
like-
even says, well, limited help from the United States. Okay, then you still need help from the United States.
They need
You're
at least, like,
alienating
the
US.
refueling planes, because I don't think they have the refueling planes needed to actually, because it's not closed. They need, and they can't. I don't think because surface to surface is gonna get shut down. They need to get their planes actually over the sky. This is why this base Diego Garcia, right in the Indian Ocean, is being so heavily militarized. Going back to what you were talking about the cabinet, Trump's cabinet. He has actually, and this is what to me is the most interesting, he has actually kept it a bit separate, right? Like the hawkish whack jobs like Marco Rubio, they are essentially sent to Latin America, right? He said, like, go and do with Latin America what you want. Let us deal with Iran. And then you have Steve Witkoff, who has presented himself, and apparently even during these talks, as a very pragmatic, as a person actually willing to let democracy work. And that is very interesting, right? That is very interesting because you wouldn't expect that from a Trump government, right? Like, not to say that Joe Biden was any better, but he didn't even try to have talks with Iran, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is actually sitting down now. We're gonna be for 3 rounds. Trump, like I said, who knows what is in his mind? Because one day he says, I want Iran to be great. Then the next day he says, they cannot have any nuclear anything, right? Any program or anything, and I'm willing to strike them. And then the next day, whatever he's gonna say. So everything's up to his whims at the end of the day, and it does feel like currently, at least, war is not really war with Iran is not in his interest. But that doesn't mean it's not gonna happen, because again, look at Diego Garcia and look at Yemen. Look at what they've been doing in Yemen.
It is fascinating to me that he has used Witkoff for everything and sidelined his State Department. Like, he's literally sidelined the State Department on everything. It's like he filled it with neocons and is like, okay, you guys sit over there. Hey, you from the real estate industry, you realist who doesn't really have these political ideologies, go negotiate.
Yeah,
go to
he
Russia.
sends it to the most volatile, right, areas.
Yeah. Go to Russia, go to Oman, go to Rome, go to Israel in this nonsense deal that they made that was purely just to give Israel time to reload. Like, it is fascinating to me that Rubio sideline, Walls sideline. Like, they may be in the room in a conversation, but from the standpoint, the guy who goes to negotiate and comes back to Trump. And by the way, Witkoff has been getting hit left and right. Oh, he's a Russian stooge. Oh, he's an Iranian stooge. Oh, he's not, he doesn't know what he's doing. They've been hitting him consistently, especially since, as you pointed out, Israel doesn't want a deal. And they have been bitching and moaning bloody murder that Donald Trump is effectively saying he may want a deal. I am fascinated by it. Now, the catch becomes, how much political latitude does Witkoff have? Mm-hmm. Because if you remember, Witkoff went to Sean Hannity and effectively said, well, it's going to be 3-point-something% enrichment. Okay, that's not that's not the Libyan model. Mm-hmm. Like, that is definitively not the Libyan model. He gets pushback. And then he comes out with a tweet effectively saying, well, this is going to be a Trumpian deal and they're not going to have any nuclear thing. Okay, so which one is it? You've contradicted yourself in regards to the statement. Now, the foreign minister for Iran was talking like Witkoff the first night, meaning we're willing to deal with the nuclear part. We're going to keep some level of enrichment, 3.6%. That might be it. That might be okay. Meaning they sounded like they were saying the same thing. So in the beginning, it sounded like they were saying the same thing. When he got the pushback, he recoiled into Libyan model stuff. Mm-hmm. But then he goes and negotiates, and they make it through the red lines conversation. Okay, that's interesting. Because, in Rome, they were supposed to be talking about red lines. What are our red lines? Do these things cross in a particular way? Mm-hmm. And then you go to the other one, or going to the other one, and they're talking technical details. Okay, that's also interesting, because the technical details is 3.6%, 2%, 1%, getting rid of all of it. Meaning they're still having the conversation. Yeah. As opposed to throwing the table over, so we're done, we can't make a deal. There may be enough political give where a deal could be made. Now the catch becomes, what does Israel do? Do they say F Trump and attack anyway, knowing that the US will most likely back them in some kind of attack? I mean, I don't, like, it's fascinating to me. Here's the thing. When I talk to Brian Berletic, he has a very coherent idea of this is why these things are happening. Mm-hmm. And it's coherent. You can put them together. They make sense. If you're looking at like foreign policy and the way, because if you're looking at it, it's like, this is too outlandish to be what it is. It's just too outlandish.
Yeah.
Like 160% tariffs or 265, whatever the hell he did on China. It's ludicrous, right? You're damaging your country. You're obviously damaging your country with this stuff. You can see it day to day to day to day.
Yeah.
And a person like me comes on and is like, okay, why is he doing that? This makes no sense. He can't be this comically inept. But then I could say, well, he's doing this because he has a false impression of business, that he is 80-something years old, and his idea of business are factories, industry, etc., because that's what he grew up with.
Yeah.
And that is what he's effectively trying to bring back to the States, even if it hurts. And I'm doing it thinking, in 10 years, we're going to be fantastic. I'd say I was going to bring back jobs. I brought back jobs. It could be that, or it could be he's walling off the country for a war with China. How do I know which one those are? Like, that's what I mean when I like, it's a coherent thing. If I take a darker view of this in regards to the Iran thing, only because there's a thread that has destroyed all of those other countries. Iran is the last one standing. Trump has a huge amount of neocons in his administration, and Israel has been going on a murder spree all throughout the Middle East, invading one country after the next. In their minds, this is our moment. This is our moment. Cut the head of the snake.
Yeah.
Is Trump on board? Is his political instincts like, I think that's going to be bad. I don't want to do that. Wick off. Go. Figure it out.
Yeah, no, for sure that's his instinct, because a war with Iran is not going to go the way that, it's not, Iran is not Gaza. Like, you're not going to come in and just pound the hell out of it. And Iran is also not Yemen, right? And look at how difficult Yemen has become for the Empire project, right? They have no answer to it. And besides killing civilians, destroying civilian infrastructure.
Slightly quibble with it. What they've decided to come up with is reignite a war. To get Saudis involved. I don't know if you saw the reporting. The Saudis were bombing after the U.S. bombed. And so it was like, let's get a bunch of jihadists, a bunch of lunatics, religious maniacs, send them back into a war to try to take the capital.
They want to do Syria, right? They want to do Syria 2.0. But the thing is that Yemen is not Syria. And the Yemeni government, the Ansar Allah-led government, is not the Assad government. They're completely different things and with completely different bases of support. Look at the images of like all the people who go out every Friday to support the Ansar Allah and Gaza. You're talking about millions of people in the streets of Sana'a, Sadah, Hodeida, even as the bombs are falling. So, it's not what you're expecting. In any case, Israel, I think they would be, because at this point, I think we can't really continue to ask the question like, oh, is the United States going to back them? The United States is going to back them. They're going to get their support. Maybe not in the way that they expected, maybe no, as fully as they would hope, because you would think that at least someone with the personality, let's say, of Donald Trump would not be very happy to be made look like a fool as diplomatic talks are taking place. And I think this is what stays in the hand of Israel at this point, is the unpredictability of a Donald Trump. But if push comes to shove, I don't think Israel is going to allow for a deal to take place, because, as you said, in this case, I am going to become one of those people that says, not Israel, but says Netanyahu, because Netanyahu in particular is the one who needs this war to continue. I think a lot of the Israeli government, most of the Israeli government, and a lot of the Israeli public are not opposed to actually going into war and cutting the head of the snake, as you said. But Netanyahu needs this, because Netanyahu, like, the walls are closing in from all sides. So unless he gets an out, right, which he probably will, with all of the corruption cases and the stuff with the Shin Bet and the stuff with the judicial overhaul and everything, and the ICJ thing, which at this point is really like, nobody's going to arrest him. Let's be honest about that. And until he gets that, he's going to continue to push for war. It's the same reason why, at this point, even though there's discontent within the actual military, calls within the actual military to stop what's happening in Gaza and to get the captives, you have Netanyahu saying these calls are irresponsible. There would be a reward for terrorism. And you have someone like his finance minister, this a religious zealot, saying the captives are not the most important thing. Right? Just saying the quiet part out loud. They're saying the part that we, for example, at the Carrillo have been saying since October 8, 2023. Now you have the Israeli official finally admitting it, because it's beyond apparent that they do not care about getting their captives back. And this is also why the U.S. has been approaching Hamas directly, right, via Qatar. They've been approaching again for talks again to get their own captives out of Gaza. And the one last thing I want to say is that in regards to Iran and in regards to the support that Israel would not get from the US, I think we should also look at all the diplomatic movements that have been happening outside of or around the talks, per se, right? You have the Iranian foreign minister is in China today. He was in Russia last week, the day before the talks. He was meeting with Putin. That same day, the Qatari prime minister was in Russia. The Omani Sultan, he was yesterday in Russia. The Saudi defense minister last week went to Tehran, and he sat down with Ayatollah Khamenei, who offered him, right? Khamenei is like, hey, you guys want to develop a nuclear program? We can help you. We have it already. And the Saudis, I'm sure, were like, yeah, sure, we'll think about it. But of course, Saudi Arabia is never going to let go of the hand of the US. But these movements are happening, right? This is all like the chess pieces are moving, because also at the same time, the Ukraine peace deal, where did it go, right? What happened to it? Where is that standing? Like, well, that was supposed to be the thing that happened first, and it still hasn't happened. So I think, you are seeing this alliance, right? The BRICS alliance at the end of the day, because Iran is part of BRICS, kind of also becoming very involved in what's happening with this war or this potential war. I'm sorry, because war with Iran is not beneficial for anyone, absolutely anyone, because Iran can, at the drop of a hat, stop all of the oil flowing through the Suez, not the Suez, the Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz, and then what are you gonna do? Right? What is China? What is Russia? What is Saudi? What is the UAE? Even the US to some extent, although I think they would be probably among the not so much hurt as the other nations. The European Union, right? They already lost.
They would be.
Suez Canal.
Yeah. I don't think they care about what Europe thinks. I think Vance is right. We don't care what Europe thinks. I think that's their policy. I mean, the Syrian war did not do Europe any favors in regards to the number of people who were fleeing into Europe. We still did it. Like, we were still, sending jihadists into the place, people fleeing out and they fleeing into Europe. Like, we didn't care. We still don't care. And Europe doesn't seem to be bright enough to even acknowledge that America was at fault for doing it. And so shutting down the oil maybe that's where its political instincts are, where it's like, if I do this, I am responsible for unpredictable chaos. Like unpredictable. And I mean literally unpredictable in regards to how Iran responds. If you cannot decapitate all of the missile systems in Iran, in a country 3 times the size of Iraq, then you're going to get hit. They may hit your troops. They may hit the oil fields in Saudi Arabia or some of these other Quisling governments. They may hit Israel directly. They will definitely shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Like, it's chaos. And I still say their military capability, I don't think we have a fair appraisal of that stuff in the way that we think we do. And the reason why I say that is, the appraisal of the US and Europe was, we could totally beat Russia. Oh, they're just a gas can. They're Nigeria with snow. They're just a gas can parading as a country. Obviously, we could take them down economically, militarily. Okay, not so much. Not so much. Like, it was Europe that fell apart. But that was their analysis. I mean, that's assuming they even did analysis. In their mind, I would wager they probably didn't even do it. It's just, of course, we could take him down economically. Oh, he passed. Oh, he'll be back. I'm assuming he will be back. There might have been some kind of thing that pulled him out, but hopefully he will come back. There we are. I was like, he's coming back. I know he's
something happened with my Wi-Fi. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're perfectly fine. Dude, my Wi-Fi went down one day. Wilmer Leon was making this really emphatic point. And he was using very strong language to make that point. And it went down all at once.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
And he's like, what the hell? Like, it comes down at the moment where it's like the entire Wi-Fi in the entire apartment building went down. And rage, frustration, like just a rat in a cage. I can't even do anything about it. Just like, I didn't even have a phone. Like, so I couldn't even call. I couldn't even call the guy to tell him, like, hey man, the Wi-Fi's down. Just like you're a rat in a cage. So totally get it, totally understand. So yeah, I don't know what Trump is going to do with this. God, man, I hope they get a deal. You have no idea. I find it to be utter chaos. And it's like, after talking to people in Iran, where you're talking about the deal and talking about the plan, it tethers you to them at some level. Like, it makes it like, these are just people. These are human beings like anybody else. And the notion that we are going to have a unilateral attack on another country that did nothing to us and is not threatening us is amazing. It's amazing. And the media just reports it like it's just straight news, like you're reporting the weather. Yeah.
Like there's no other option, right? Like this is literally the only way that these things can happen.
Somebody said they're part of BRICS, women. Right here. It says Iran is part of BRICS. BRICS cannot let the USA. Jamal, put on your membership in the drop down for a super chat. What? Put your my memberships are on. They're on. I promise you, they're on. They're on. They're on. And you just gave me a super chat. At least I don't think so. But look, I think a lot of people have this belief that if they are attacked, that Russia and China would get involved. Putin signed a security thing, security economic partnership yesterday, which seems to make a point. Maybe I'm wrong on this. It just seems to be very coincidental that this is the moment that he signs it. I don't doubt that Russia would help militarily in any way they can, meaning goods, services, etc. China may even do something similar. I don't know if they're getting militarily involved. Give me your take on it. I mean, for one, it will be an air war.
Yeah.
I don't think they're putting ground troops on. Like Netanyahu has this cartoonish vision of ground troops are going to go in and they're going to have air cover and they're going to take down the bombs. And it's like, dude, the bombs are all over the country. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And even the U.S. thought, okay, this is farcical. That's why they didn't back. This is nonsense. I'm going to try to negotiate because what you're saying is just foolish right now. Do you think they would get involved militarily? Like, and just real quick, if you think of the First World War, where Archduke Ferdinand gets popped, nobody thought a war was going to take place. You have a podunk country in the middle of Europe that nobody ultimately cares about. Austria is trying to basically get Serbia to bow down. It's like we are trying to exert a certain control over you because you're getting kind of uppity. And Serbia, for the most part, is like, okay, we will take all of your provisions with the exception of you cannot run our courts. That is sovereign to us. Like, you're out of your mind. But they crafted that with the explicit know-how that they were going to reject it so they can go to war. Okay, that is pretty amazing, like how the events tumbled into this kind of larger conflict, what started off as a regional matter. And I'm saying, I feel that energy with this in a particular way, even though I can't necessarily think of the steps where it becomes that larger conflict, especially considering the sides and the power of these sides that are on this conflict in a way that it would function. Give me your take on that. Do you think that they would get militarily involved?
Not particularly. I mean, this is just my personal view. Just because of everything that's happened over the past, call me jaded, call me, anything you want. But I don't feel like China and Russia are really willing to start like themselves go get involved in the war. I think it could escalate into that, right? It could very easily because at this point anything's possible. Like you said, Russia has strategic defense agreements with Iran. The most important one, which is also the most recent one, calls for the other side to essentially not join, right? If Iran gets attacked, then Russia, per this agreement, cannot join the attack on Iran, and vice versa, right? They also have, these agreements with China, similar defense sharing, defense cooperation, the drills that they do, right? They do drills every year in the Persian Gulf with China, with Russia. So, like I said, it could happen. But I think something very important that you said is this is not going to be a ground war. Because first of all, Israel doesn't have enough troops. Like, what is he going to march them all the way to the Iranian border? I mean, now they have Syria. They do still have this army of ISIS. Oh, never forget the army of ISIS that is in the Syrian prisons, right? That now the US is starting to dismantle some of its bases in this area to give it to the Al Qaeda government in Damascus. They could activate that. The U.S. is militarizing Diego Garcia. They have these long-range bombers. Maybe they can allow Israel to use them. The U.K., right? The U.K. is also there. We don't often speak about how involved the U.K. is, not just in the genocide, in the attacks in Yemen, in everything that is happening in the region. They're still there. They might, be pushed by the U.S. to be like, okay, you do it, and then we wait and see what happens with you. But Russia and China, I think there's going to be a very big push to end things diplomatically, first of all, right? No matter what Israel wants. And I think if Israel goes a rogue, as it often does, right, throughout its history, we might see the same thing that we are seeing now, right? That the U.S. starts just providing them with weapons and stuff. But with Iran, it's not going to work. It's not going to work in the long term. Even I remember last week I saw this quote from some Pentagon official who said, "You know what? Even if we attack Iran today, at best we're going to set back their nuclear program by about 3 months, because their facilities are built deep underground. You know, like Iran is a mountainous nation and a huge nation." With an army that they don't have air power, right? Iran cannot threaten anyone with air power.
Missiles, yeah.
Yeah, they have the missile, their missile program, their long-range missile program. They have a very strong troops, right? Like the ground troops. They would defend the territory perfectly fine against any threat. And then, Iran, we don't know what their air defenses are. Like I thought after the attack in Tehran, remember when they killed the Hamas chief, you would think they upgraded them significantly.
Yeah.
And but other than that, I think at this point we are going to see diplomacy continue until there's a breaking point. And the breaking point is probably going to be Israel, without a doubt, because Israel cannot afford diplomacy at the end of the day. Like, for example, with the Yemenis, right? I keep going back to the Yemeni question. They're not going to stop their attacks because Iran says, like, oh, we signed a nuclear deal. If the genocide in Gaza is still ongoing, if no aid enters Gaza, if no housing, medical supplies, etc., enter Gaza, if the Palestinians start getting displaced, then Yemen is going to act independently of whatever else is happening, and you still need to answer that question, right? And I feel like at the end of the day, even the nuclear deal is going to hinge on, is Israel going to stop the massacre? Is Israel going to stop the bloodshed in Gaza and permanently, right? Like even Hamas said yesterday, a Hamas official said, we are willing to discuss disarmament if we get a long-lasting truce, which is a huge if. It's a huge if. It's like, at this point, when we're talking about all of these wars, except maybe the Ukraine war, that's the linchpin. That's like what's holding everything back, is the fact that Israel is not willing to stop killing Palestinian families.
Right. And that is capitulation, literal.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I mean, for God's sake, 50,000 to 100,000 people get killed, most of which are women and children. I would imagine if you're Hamas, you want it to stop, right? Like, that's just a human thing of, this is unbelievable in regards to the level of barbarity that they're Israel is going with. I guess the thing is, though, the moment that you disarm.
Yeah. The resistance is over.
They're right. Like it's thank you for your weapon, and now we're going in and taking it all. And like, I guess that's my thing. But it's kind of like the Second Amendment in the United States. Maybe that's my American point of view, right? Like, it's like you gotta have the gun to defend yourself against the government. In this case, in literal terms, like but they're not going to accept that. They don't care. It's not about. Look, from my point of view, the nuclear thing has nothing to do with nuclear energy. Israel just wants to take down Iran because it stands in their way of the greater Israel project that they're effectively going with. They've expanded in Syria, they're expanding in Lebanon, they're taking the West Bank, they're taking Gaza. They're going to create an apartheid state in Gaza and the West Bank. Trump will allow them to do it because he can't get rid of the Palestinians unless Israel just murders 2 million of them. So, so there's that, right? Hamas can say, I mean, this is a band of rebels. This is not a military. This is, people who get arms from this place and that place in order to have some level of resistance against a military with nuclear weapons. We should put that in context. And so it's like, okay, thank you for your gun. All of you are defenseless. We can do whatever we want,
Indeed.
Which is effectively what they've been doing anyway. So maybe there's not that big of a difference between it. And I do get it. But Hamas is making this. See, it's weird. It's the perception of Hamas. That's the issue. From the U.S. point of view, from Israel's point of view, well, this is a terrorist organization, despite the fact that Israel was funding these guys at one point in order to create this dichotomy between the West Bank and Gaza. It's their perception. This is kind of conversation I have with Brian Berletic, where he's like, This is going to be a weird analogy, but I think it makes the point. My ex-wife and I were in Iceland. We got married in Iceland. We're in Iceland. And we're walking through this kind of park or something. And a swan or ducks had a bunch of ducklings behind it as it was going. And a swan jumps in, eats one of the baby ducklings, flies away. And everybody at the park was horrified. They was like, oh my God. And they started trying to hit the swan to get it to drop the dead baby duck at that point, because they were aghast by the whole thing. And my wife was like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. I was like, you just ate a hamburger. It's like, are you serious right now? Like, meaning the swan looks bad because the swan just murdered something in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But the hamburger was murdered by a butcher that you never see. And because eating a hamburger. It's that. Hamas is a ragtag group that is a resistance group against an occupation.
Yeah.
If this was France, it would be okay because they're white. If it was, Britain or something like that under a Nazi occupation, it would be okay because they're white. They're not. They're Arabs. And as being Arabs, it is perfectly okay. The world has decided it is okay for you to be murdered and murdered en masse. And we won't do anything about it. We would just watch as you die in this humiliating death spiral that these guys are effectively doing. Despite Israel's barbarity, Hamas is still considered a terrorist organization, despite the fact that they're the ones pushing back against the barbarity.
Exactly.
And the fact that they're under occupation, I would argue they are what Israel made them to be. And I don't mean that in the sense that Israel created the group. I mean that in the sense of how you treat people is how they respond. It's like you play chess, you make a move, you get aggressive with me, I'm going to try to push back. Same thing.
Exactly.
And so it's weird when we talk about it, because many people don't see them in this light of resistance. They see them in this light of terrorism. And so it becomes okay for them to be killed. It becomes okay for Israel to say, well, we're going after Hamas. It becomes okay for Israel to do whatever they want, even though the level of barbarity is off the scale. Like you're talking about, okay, Israel might have killed, 800 of its own people, whatever that number is. And on top of doing that, in fact, let's be maximalists. Let's say Hamas killed all of those people. Israel has killed like nearly 100,000 people, at least 51,000 that you know of, ungodly numbers under the rubble, and they're still going. What did Syria have to do with it? What did Lebanon have to do with it? Like, this stuff is outrageous. But again, Hamas is seen in a particular way. It's very strange. Do you think they should give up their weapons at this point? And I guess maybe there's not a difference with them with their weapons or without, because they've been decimated to such a degree. But what's your take on that?
That's what I was going to say. Exactly what you were saying, right? Is there going to be even a difference at this point? Honestly,
Yeah.
Although, well, just let's talk for a bit about numbers before I get to my actual thoughts. Israel admitted, the military admitted a few weeks ago that they haven't actually destroyed most of the tunnels underneath Gaza. That they've destroyed just a fraction of them. And that that, like, I think I've spoken with you about this before, that Hamas is constantly refilling its ranks, that even the weapons that are left in Gaza, or that the Hamas can take from the Israeli military, they're essentially refilling their capacities, their ammo supplies. But I think at this point, at this particular point, yes, I think Hamas really needs to sit down at the table. And if an actual truce can be offered, but then there's a problem, right?
They've tried.
Exactly.
They've tried over and over again. Like, that's the maddening part about this, right? They made the deal with Witkoff. Israel violated it all the way through. Didn't care one iota because they knew Trump wasn't going to do anything about it. They offered to back away from the government. Israel didn't care. They continued the killing spree. Like, they are being broken down in regards to their offers. Like, okay, what if we finally give up our weapons?
Yeah.
And I would wager to you, that's not even going to matter.
Yeah, it's not going to matter at this point. And, because really the ball is completely on the other side. The ball is on the side that has dropped more than the equivalent of more than 6 nuclear bombs inside Gaza and killed so many children, so many women. When we're talking about the destruction of Gaza, we're not just talking about the buildings or the territory, even the dead, the people who have died. We're talking about the future. We're talking about generations to come. These are people who are going to have to deal, whoever manages to survive, they're going to have to survive disease. They're going to have to survive malnourishment, etc. Stuff that is going to happen for generations. Remember what happened in Iraq when all of these people started getting cancer, right? Like all of these Iraqis started getting cancer from the aftermath of the bombs that were dropped there. So now think about what's going to happen in Gaza. You're talking about a literal war of extermination, a literal, we are in a few generations, these people are simply going to cease to exist. That's the goal of the Israeli occupation. I think it's really important, and I'm on what you said, right, of how Hamas is portrayed, how Hezbollah, how Ansarallah, how up to an extent even Iran is portrayed, right? Because the movements, right, the resistance movements, what they are is an indigenous resistance to occupation. They are natives of the land picking up weapons to fight against European or Western settlers that came in to kill their people, to steal their land, to take everything, to burn what they couldn't take to the ground. And that is a human right that is enshrined within the international law. Resistance to occupation by any means necessary. It's not like resistance to occupation by peaceful means and just march and make sittings. No, is if you need to pick up a weapon, you pick up a weapon because that is your right as a human with self-determination. That is simply that is not something that ever Western media is ever going to tell you. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, you name it, BBC, Al Jazeera, even I would say, they are not going to tell you that this is enshrined in international law, because they have to keep this narrative, right? That has been the main driving narrative of not just geopolitics, but I would even say, like mass entertainment in the West, which is Arabs are terrorists and terrorists are bad. And that's it. Like, Muslims are terrorists and terrorists are bad. Even though the fact that, somebody's terrorist is somebody else's freedom fighter, this word is pretty meaningless. And this is why it's used so widely. And so, just slapped on anything. Like the protest, right? The campus protest, Hamas supporters, terrorist supporters. What? The stuff that happened in Coachella last weekend, right? With the this message that was put on the screen. Like, I'm sure these Irish bands about to be branded a terrorist pretty soon. Anything, right? Anything at this point, anything that is part of the discourse, even our conversation, even what we're doing right now. Like, somebody's gonna, some Zionist can come in and be like, oh, look at these as terrorist supporters, whatever.
You can go fuck yourself, I don't care.
Yeah, it's not, because sadly, reality should not be shaped to the perspective of a people who are willing to commit genocide simply because they got taken by surprise one day by the indigenous resistance that they have been oppressing for the past 76 years.
Right.
That's not an excuse to commit genocide. There's no excuse to commit genocide ever. Simply, let's agree on that at the very least. But they don't, so they need. They
don't. Like, that's the wild part, right? Yeah. Even the political parties in the U.S., they don't. I showed the thing of Bernie Sanders, like, oh, the genocide word I don't particularly like, and people lost it. Some guys start screaming at Sanders.
How at one point they were saying that from the river to the sea is a terrorist slogan. I would say Israel has a right to defend itself is a real terrorist slogan at this point. On April 22nd, 2025, to say that Israel has a right to defend itself, that's supporting genocide. That's a terror slogan.
Every accusation is a confession, right? Human shields, the rapes. I mean, for God's sake, you can see it on TV. Like, they did it on camera, for God's sake. You can imagine what they're doing off camera.
Yeah, they put it on their social media, They happily put it on their social media for everyone.
Which is wild to me. Like, this was the same thing that was happening in Syria, right? Where Jelani's goons, his thugs, were out there effectively beating the shit out of children, murdering women, going into houses and killing, and filming themselves like, hey, I'm on vacation. Look at what I'm doing. Watch me kill this person. And you think to yourself, what happened to that guy? Like, I may call him a thug. I may call him, a whack job, a religious maniac, whatever. He's a person. He takes a dump, every other day or whatever, depending on his diet, right? He puts on shoes. He puts on a turban or whatever the hell he's wearing. I would hope he takes a shower every blue moon. He's a person. He feels... God, man, some of these references, I know these references a while, but I use them to try to make the point. Have you ever watched Invincible?
The what?
The cartoon. There's a cartoon called Invincible. It's like an anime.
Oh, no, I haven't. I heard about it.
It is fantastic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There is a scene where this goon comes to Earth. This guy, I forget his name. And Invincible has to fight him. And the guy beats the shit out of Invincible. Up until the point where Invincible kind of gets his ire up and goes after the guy. But before that happens, he pins Invincible to the ground where he thinks he's about to kill him. And he turns, he goes to his ear, he says, I get sad sometimes. It was it's a shocking scene, right? This brute, this thug comes to Earth in order to like pacify Earth. And he's like, they don't even give me a name. They give me a title. They give me a mission. He's like, sometimes I cry at night. Like, he's saying this stuff because he's about to kill him, believing that I need to purge my emotions and I can only do it in a man that I'm about to kill.
Mm.
I imagine that those people are people and they have the same drives, feelings, and everything else as human beings. And yet they've like morphed themselves, disfigured themselves into this thing that would go into a house and film themselves murdering somebody. What happened to that guy?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there are thousands of them. I can't, it's hard to reconcile myself that that's a person. But it's a person.
You know,
It's not to me. And real quick, I guess my point is, same thing with Israel. Like that fascist state, or Nazis, for example, they were also people. And yet they've morphed themselves into this disfigured version of humanity and to the tunes of thousands.
yeah. No, indeed. Indeed. You know, and actually, I guess to bring it full circle, you know, you're talking to me about these maniacs, right? These maniacs who go around chopping people's head off, or just what's happening in Gaza, etc., filming themselves, and you wonder, right? And actually, what you made me think of is what's happening in Ecuador. And you know, I'm gonna go completely for circle in our conversation and mention that right now, for example, right, we were talking about Ecuador, how the homicide rate is just completely through the roof. A lot of these homicides are being committed by children. They're being committed by little boys who are, because right now in Ecuador, what you have is assassin schools. You have school of assassins in which, you know, these boys who are poor, who are disenfranchised, who are marginalized, who some of them may even be trying to go to school. They get harassed by the gangs. Their school gets blackmailed by the gangs or attacked. Who knows? You know, like many of the things that can happen, and they end up in the hands of these criminals who shape them up to be who they need them to be, so that they can go kill someone without remorse, without thinking. You know, the cartels, right? They have these rituals in which they make their soldiers eat human meat, so go to dehumanize them, right? And it's the same practice at the end of the day. It's the same practice, the same mentality from whoever is turning you into this person, right? Because I don't think anybody, without any incitement, without any training, without any, you know, teaching, goes up and he just like picks up a weapon. Except, you know, if even I would say even like the school shooters, right, with the internet, etc. You don't just as a human being go and pick up a weapon and just start killing someone if you didn't already have something shaped in your head, or were shaped by something, be it the internet, be it the warlord, be it the drug cartel, be it the CIA, be it, you know, whoever it was. And it's the same thing, right? Like these maniacs in Syria, they are serving somebody's purpose. They're serving somebody else's purpose. In this case, Turkey and Israel, and the US, of course. In Israel, the soldiers who are in Gaza committing these atrocities, they are serving somebody's purpose. In this case, the Israeli government, right? So, and these children in the black cities of Ecuador, in the black neighborhoods of Ecuador, or just in the poor neighborhoods of Ecuador, they are serving somebody's purpose. And it's really, you know, that like at some point we need to understand that if we cut that flow, then we can actually cut off, you know, the head of the snake, I guess, so to speak. But until we do that, there's always going to be this rotating group of soldiers who will do anything they're told to do because it serves somebody else's purpose. And at some point, you know, like when I'm talking about the children, obviously, up to an extent, it's not their fault. Now, when we're talking about the Israeli soldiers, they know what they're doing. They know very well what they're doing. Same for ISIS, same for, you know, all of these groups.
They don't seem to. Like, who the fuck films themselves? Like killing them. I watched a film, like, and I can never even show that stuff online because my channel gets shut down when I tried to show it.
No.
And then I watched this film where they beat the shit out of a 90-year-old girl, grown men. And I'm sitting here like the rage, like that you get with that. It is infuriating. The notion that is what you use your might and muscle to do. I will tell you, when I see Israelis get their ass kicked in foreign countries, I love it. I play the shit on.
Now the Thailand videos are amazing.
Those things are fantastic. One question before I let you go.
Sure.
So there's a report, and I didn't run this report because it has a lot of squirrely language in it. It's like Trump may go to speak to Erdogan, and he may ask him to use his airspace, and he may ask him to not get involved. Like it's like okay, none of this shit is real. If you're doing an article like this,
Like so many
but
ways.
would Erdogan allow Trump to use his airspace for an attack on Iran?
They are NATO partners. It's possible, right? I think what happened in Syria at the end of the day, it was Turkey kind of trying to take Iran's spot in a way in the dynamics of the region, right? Yeah. Syria was for a very long time Iran's protectorate, in many ways. Now Turkey is like they are stepping in and they're like, no, I want that, and you can go, and sit over there at the end. They are two, Islamic republics, one Sunni, one Shiite. So yeah, I would. If the push comes to shove with Erdogan, really, I think the push needs to be very small. At the end of the day, this man is a chameleon. The Turks are chameleonic. They're like one day talking with this person, the next day with the other person. They're just willing to work out anything with anyone. So I do think that Turkey is very likely to allow that, or even help Israel. Like for all we know, maybe the Turks are going to help Israel.
To back you up on that point. Do you remember when Erdogan was like, Netanyahu is Hitler? And then when Syria fell, Israel and Turkey were working hand in hand in that. Meaning you were working with that Hitler. And when Israel exposed it, he's like, oh, that's outrageous. That's not blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, you guys were literally working in coordination, taking stuff like simultaneously. Obviously, you were working together. So yeah, you're right. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, apparently they're trying to make deals over Syria now to carve it up. So
yeah. But it's you cannot trust them very much because, as you say, they have no word. Like Erdogan goes and says one thing, and then behind the scenes does something completely different. How can you trust?
Esteban, this has been a fantastic, wide-ranging conversation, and we have 655 people here to hear this conversation. What's funny and what sucks, I always tell people they got to eat their peas on some of the stuff because I want to hit other areas of the world. When we were talking about Ecuador, it dropped to like 575. When we got on that conversation, it went all the way up to like 665 or something like that. It's like, okay, I get the hint. I get
what you're interested in. Yeah. But sadly, like I said, this stuff is happening everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of them we don't hear about, and others we hear about constantly.
I got to hit Sudan at some point with somebody because the audience continuously is like, you're not covering Sudan. You're not covering Sudan. It's like, dude, I need to. When Kofi comes back, Kofi can do it. Thank you, my man. Esteban Carrillo. He is an Ecuadorian journalist, currently writing for The Cradle, previously with Tell Us Our English. Fantastic guest and great conversation, man. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Jamarlt. Thank you to everyone who joined, and hope you will get better soon with the hand and all of that.
Oh, it's healing. I'm okay. I got my phone. The phone is the thing that I needed. The hand will heal.
Okay.
You have a good one, man. Be safe.
I'm gonna head out. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. All right. The next guest is going to be coming up soon. What time is it? In fact, they're going to be coming up in like 1 minute. I'm going to have a panel today. The guest that I originally had at 9:30 was going to be very different than the guest I had at 9 o'clock. That guest apparently caught the flu, caught the cold, caught something, and wasn't able to join. So I figured I'll just bring both guests because if they're similar, they may have different ideas, but at the very least, they may talk about this stuff in slightly different ways. They may make it interesting conversation, especially on this notion of lefty politics. It seems that elements of the left have been getting rageful at status quo Democrats. Let me bring in my man, Ted Rall, political cartoonist, syndicated columnist, host, TMI, Too Much Information with the great, the beautiful, the awesome Manila Chan. My man, Ted, what's going on? How you doing today?
I'm pretty good. Suffering from asthma, but it's appropriate.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I have asthma. I have since I was 12. It's a story in and of itself, but it's very hazy here in New York City. So yeah,
I've been going on a thank you tour, and I've been bugging the shit out. I guess in my thank yous. They're like the bashful, like, dude, just stop. The man shouldn't do that. Whatever. There have been many guests that have come on this show and have been with me for the entire ride. You've been one of them. I deeply appreciate you.
It's been my pleasure, Jamal. And
no, man, I really appreciate
you're not like gonna kill yourself or anything like that, right?
No, it's nothing like that. I mean, look, anybody could drop dead at any point. I have no expectations, but no, it's just I just hit the 50K. I consider it a landmark. I have been at 30K for, God, man, I stopped
No,
the
that's
show.
amazing. That's not even like something I can see on the distant horizon, so that's great.
The first 30 was a scratch and bite, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't like large leaps. When I came back with a different format that I just took from the radio show. Like, it was like, oh, I was doing the show Faultlines. Okay, let me do it exactly the way I want to. I wanted to do Faultlines alone. Love Malik to death. No shade on him at all. Love Manila to death. No shade on her at all. Both of them would
Jamal,
tell you.
I got to just interrupt to say, there's some sort of like alert siren going on outside my window here in New York City, like an air raid type alarm, which I've never heard before.
Do you need to check? I don't want you to.
I don't know. I'm just going to open the window a little bit, but I'm going to keep talking. But like,
I don't want you to get hit with anything. I
was on. Remember that little earthquake we had once? Like,
yeah.
I was on the air when that happened. It was really good.
Were you? That's fascinating.
I was like, what was that?
No, man. I just want to say thank you. That's all. It's I deeply appreciate it. Like, you didn't have to do it. You did it, and you came on over and over again. I appreciate it. I think the audience appreciate it. Your historical knowledge on this stuff is just breathtaking to me. Like, I learn something every time you open your mouth about historical context. So no, man, I just want to thank you. I'm not going to.
It's my pleasure. I say no to Sean Hannity so I can say yes to you.
Well, I appreciate that. I deeply appreciate
that.
Plus,
I hate Sean Hannity, so there's that.
I'm going to that asshole show anyway. I'll give you a story about Sean Hannity. I was talking to who? No, it was Keith Olbermann, I think. Olbermann apparently knew Sean Hannity. And, this was in the days where Olbermann was at MSNBC and everything else. So apparently he knew Sean Hannity. And he made the point that Sean Hannity is fake as fuck. That he effectively shapes himself into what he needs to be for the show. There's no.
Well, that's true. Although he really is an asshole, off the air. Like he's a dick like that. Like really? Kind of, he's a cock like that. It's weird because they're not all like that. I used to be on Fox so regularly that I had my own security pass. I was on several days a week. And so, I was on Bill O'Reilly like all the time. And Bill O'Reilly was very different off the air. He was a very sort of quiet, contemplative, soulful person.
Really?
Yeah. It's
Bill
kind of
O'Reilly?
it's not like Bill Maher talking about his dinner with Trump, but that is kind of like what it was like. And at one time, I went on there and I had done a very controversial cartoon, and he said, I'm hearing things from my side, and if you need to hide out, he's like, I have a house upstate, you can borrow my house, if you need to get out of Dodge or whatever. And I was like, that's amazing to me.
Bill O'Reilly, the guy who was like, fuck it, we'll do it live. That guy, he's yelling at the guy, he's like, wow, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so it's just you just never know.
I just remember Olbermann used to rag on him like nobody's business. Just, oh God, he used to rag on him. And it got to the point where Bill would not even acknowledge Keith Olbermann. Because, when we do YouTube, when we go after somebody, and you may have shows that get to the point where the show is continuously going after a person. I've never seen that done on TV. I've never seen it on TV.
I don't think it makes good television, to be honest.
Honestly, it did.
I think it's about the ideas, especially in politics. It's about the ideas. Making it personal. It's then go watch reality TV, because that's a different genre.
That was the funniest shit ever. And you could binge watch that. Him, Lou Dobbs. It was just various people that Keith Olbermann used to continuously go after and go after and go after.
Yeah.
He would have segments, worst person in the world.
Yeah.
And personally, I thought it was funny.
Well, it's because it was him, right? No one else could really carry it off. There's certain things like that people try to copy, and it's nah, that's you can't copy it.
It doesn't work.
That person can do it. No one.
It doesn't work. All right. I don't know what happened to Peter, so I'm just going to start. I'm just
okay.
I've been treading water. But there is a fascinating fight, at least I think so, that seems to be brewing on the left. And I saw this clip, and I'm just going to play it. This is Elizabeth Warren. She's on a channel that has like less than 1,000 subs. So that's like, I don't know why she's on this channel. Senator.
If she's going to do that, she can come on mine. But anyway, all right.
It's online. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
It's been on YouTube. So let me I'm going to pull it up. And when I saw it, I was like, why is she on this channel? Who is this guy? Like, how did he get Elizabeth? Maybe I'm jealous. Maybe, yeah, okay, fair enough. This is my jealousy coming through. How the hell did he get Elizabeth Warren? And maybe my audience, like, why the hell do you want Elizabeth Warren on the show? She's a senator. Why wouldn't I want her on the show?
Yeah.
He goes through this entire interview.
A notable senator.
Is critical of her and the Democratic Party in this interview. It is fascinating. But there's an absurd part that he gets to that I want to play for you that is fascinating. Completely fascinating. In fact, I'm just going to play it. I'm not going to preempt it. I have a tendency to preempt.
Okay.
A mental acuity. He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
Right there for a moment. She laughs at the question, by the way. She laughed. She's like, do you really think he was sharp as you? She can't even keep it in.
Joe Biden's never been that sharp. Okay, ever. So that's.
I'm pointing out that she is trying to defend her comments about Joe Biden being sharp to somebody who's pointing out it is outrageous that you are saying that this man is sharp when he was out of his fucking mind and should have been out of the race a long time ago. And
yeah,
maybe
2019, in my opinion, but yeah.
Yeah, right. And so that's his point. Like, you're responsible. You're culpable for this. You, just like many of the other Democrats, pretended as if this man was on it and that he could run in a race. And when he went to that debate,
well, it's a mafia. They were all told, like, you've got to, like, this is the party line. Literally, you've got to stand. You can't just say no comment. You've got to keep up appearances. Otherwise, you're not loyal. You know, it's kind of like the ultimate example of that is when Bush sent Colin Powell up to the UN to lie about weapons, anthrax and stuff in Iraq. It's like, you've got to show your bona fides. You've got to show that you're loyal. Otherwise, you're no longer with us. That's what this is about.
I don't care.
Oh, I agree with you. I'd be like, there's certain things go too far.
Yes.
And claiming that Joe Biden is sharp as a tack, it goes too far.
Sharp as a tack as he was about to run into a race.
And you destroy your own brand. You'll lose all of your credibility. I mean, politicians, you could bend the truth. But if you just brazenly lie and everyone knows you're lying, you're screwed.
We have to put this in context. They're saying this man is Hitler. He's a fascist. He's going to shoot Liz Cheney in the face. There would never be another elections.
Right.
And they are saying the guy to hold back the night, the man on the wall, is Joe Biden. And he's sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
He has hard sex with his wife. These are things that they like. He
remember
behind stage.
Remember the press secretary, Jean-Pierre, who said that, he was like, oh, he's like a twister. He's like a tornado. He's like Dolomite 2. He's impossible to keep up with. He's the tornado.
That's outrageous.
He's the Rudy Ray Moore of our time. Like, what?
If you are a Democrat, that shit is outrageous. And she laughs at it, which makes it even worse. Like, meaning
later she admitted that she never saw him. Right? Like, ever. Like,
see, so that's the thing, right? Like, I guess
you didn't see that tornado, right? Like,
if you are complaining about Trump as a Democrat, and you were in Congress, you were talking to the media at that time, and as a Democrat, you were like, the worst case scenario has happened. Trump is elected twice, and he's going all in.
I got it. What does Liz Warren have to say after he?
Okay. I'm sorry. Let me go to Liz Warren.
I'm like on tenterhooks here.
Okay, let me go to Liz Warren. I'm sorry. Let's hear Liz. I'm finished this out.
Biden had a mental acuity. He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I said I had not seen decline. And I hadn't at that point.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that. The thing is, he was sharp. he was on his feet. I saw him live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise. He can speak in sentences is not praise.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Look, the question is, what are we going to do now?
Biden had a mental.
You're mute. You're on.
I know. I'm trying. I was fumbling with the thing to try to get to the.
Oh, sorry.
I was frantically fumbling trying to get to that thing, saying no. That is not the question. There needs to be accountability.
Well,
that's
like
the question is, don't reframe this, right? Like,
well, that's what the Democrats always do, right? They always say, like, basically they present you with a fait accompli. That's their shtick. Oh, I know you wanted Bernie in 2016, but you've got Hillary. You're stuck with that choice. Now that we've stuck you with that choice, right? You didn't stick you with that choice. We stuck you with that choice. Now you're in Sophie's choice, and you got to pick which of your daughters goes into the oven, right? It's like 2020. We do the same thing. And it's like, you have 20 Democrats, but we're going to choose the worst one. That's your choice. It's that or Donald Trump. Okay, we're going to vote against Donald Trump because he's insane and it's a pandemic and 1 million Americans have died. So, okay. But I mean, they just keep doing this. And they did it with Joe Biden running for reelection. He's not going to run for reelection. Oh, he is going to run. Well, and inside the DNC, they always have the same conversation, and it always ends up like this. Where else are people like Ted and Jamarlt going to go? Where are they going to go? They're stuck. It's when it comes down to voting for Trump or our shitty candidate, they'll vote for our shitty candidate. And of course, that's not true.
Yeah.
But that's what they think. And that's why they've lost. They lost 2016. They lost 2024. They would have lost in 2020 if not for the unique circumstances of the pandemic. Right. That had nothing to do with Biden or them. So really effectively, they fucked up three elections in a row, at least. And they think this is our thing. They're stuck. And it's like they're just wrong. We're not. I mean, some of us are stuck. I have lots of friends who are stuck, and they're like, yeah, D, but like not enough to get to 270 electoral votes. That's
Ted. What I would have wanted from him was rage. That's not funny. Like, meaning, don't run a race where you tell me that Trump is Hitler, and he is gonna, in America, when he gets in office, and he's gonna start murdering people and putting them up against the wall. Maybe, I don't know, who knows? But let's say you believe that, because that is what you're pumping out as propaganda to your lemmings and your liberals and your cultish followers.
Well, he did turn out to be pretty crazy. But
he did turn out to be pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So far, he hasn't put anybody against the wall yet. He hasn't deported people and all that stuff. I guess my point is, if you fully believe it,
crazy, though. Yeah.
Then you need to own it. And what I mean by owning it is, you're telling me that the guy or the woman to deal with that is Harris, or for that matter, Joe Biden. That is outrageous. And then it's like you make this argument like, no, don't believe your lying eyes. Believe us who sit behind the scenes.
Right.
That's outrageous.
Well, and like I've said, like basically, look, what bugs me the most about this is, right, so they lied for 4+ years about Biden's mental acuity or lack thereof. And all the books that are about to come out in the next few weeks are going to completely confirm that. People like Tapper and all these other people. But I mean, we all knew this. But the part that really bugs me is like, okay, so you're a grifter, fine, but like you got to the certain point where it's kind of like, they basically are living the Bernie Madoff lifestyle, bullshit after bullshit after bullshit, and eventually it catches up. Right at a certain point, there's a margin call that you can't make, and that margin call for the Democrats was the debate with Trump, a summer ago, and like now the thing is, they decided to go all in with that, and when Biden walked out onto that stage, if they had pumped him up with the right amount of narcotics to make him like be able to be presentable, they would have won. They would have been like, no one would have watched the second debate. He would have been reelected. We would have looked stupid, even though we were right. But they didn't. But they gambled. They went all in. And then the house call, lights off, clear the table, pay up. And so, and what bugs me is they don't see it that way. They don't feel like they should have to pay up. It's like they don't clear out, they don't fire the DNC, they don't start from scratch. There's no accountability. That's the part that bugs me. Like, you grifted. Bernie Madoff went to prison because, that's how this works. Richard Nixon grifted, to a much lesser degree. He, again, when
nearly went to prison.
In August 1974, he had to pay the piper, right? It's like he had to leave. It's like, and so again, Kamala Harris, she had, I was reading about how, what's his name? George Clooney. He recently gave an interview where he said, it was about the letter that he wrote in the New York Times, the op-ed. He said, it was my civic duty to say what I knew because I'd seen Biden. And I'm like, okay, why does an actor have a higher civic duty than, say, the Vice President of the United States, who has the 25th Amendment? She's the only person who can activate it, right? If she had activated the 25th Amendment, I would say 2021, 2022, everyone would have been like, she's a horrible person. She's self-dealing. She just wants to be president. She's stabbing kindly old Joe in the back. That said, it would have been the patriotic thing to do. And probably the truth would have come out eventually. And she would have been vindicated. But if not, and everybody still thinks you suck, but you did the right thing for your country, then you're a good American. And she didn't do that.
That's the Batman argument, right? Let the dogs chase me. Let me be the bad guy, and you stand in the light. Yeah, that's the Batman argument. It's like that is the most patriotic thing, right? When it's like nobody knows, it's just you. You're the only person that knows that you did something good.
Right.
Yeah, that's hard. That's very hard. I don't know how many politicians got that on them to do something like that.
She wasn't the one. I mean, I could see JD Vance doing it. I can't see her doing it.
Maybe. I mean,
it's very maybe. I mean, it was a poorly written amendment because the vice president's the person who benefits from triggering it. And so it should not have been up to the vice president to activate it.
But they don't typically do.
Well, it's never happened.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever the mechanics.
But also, of course, that's not an argument. Like, well, it's never happened before. Okay, so I mean, big deal. It's there for a reason, right? I mean, if there's a fire alarm in my building, which is 100 years old and it's never burned to the ground before, well, I'm still going to pull it when I smell smoke.
I'm pointing out that over the course of history of our political system, there's been continuity of respecting it, and once it's violated, then you may change it.
Right.
That's the way. I could be wrong.
Well, I would say Biden and his family and his closest advisors and the DNC did not respect the American system when he presented himself in 2020 to run for office.
Agreed.
And it was the only reason that he ran for president was because the DNC decided he was the guy to kneecap Bernie.
Yep.
That's it. It was a stop Bernie operation. I'm very unclear on why they didn't feel like they could get someone else to stop Bernie.
Black vote.
But
the black vote.
They went with him.
Biden was going to get the black vote, and they knew it.
Right.
This
was a James Clyburn operation.
In South Carolina. If you remember, Sanders was stomping through all of those states, and Joe Biden was failing in all of those states. And I know Margaret Kimberly pointed out, she's Clyburn's influence is massively overestimated. Yeah. And she may be completely right. But the political, let's say, tea leaves, or the way that people talk about it, is Clyburn gave Joe Biden the nod. And Sanders, look, I will tell you, it may not have had anything to do with Clyburn. In the Black community, under normal circumstances, the thing is, who can keep the monsters at bay? It's just that. Right. And if we think you're a respectable candidate that can win and legitimate, you may get our nod. Obama in the beginning, if you remember, Clinton was winning the black vote. And I think after Obama won Iowa, they were like, holy shit, he can win. Oh my God. And a level of legitimacy was effectively bestowed upon this black man with a Muslim name that is just, somewhat outlandish as a candidate that could typically run. He got the nod in that sense. They're like, okay, well, why are we voting for this woman? Black guy can do it. Let's back him. Obama. It became a
Right.
thing. He ran an awesome campaign. You know, got to give him credit.
He wasn't even. I mean, this was definitely supposed to. 2008 was supposed to be a getting to know you campaign. Like basically, it's just like building his name recognition for a future run. He's kind of like Trump. He was kind of like a dog who caught a car.
Yeah.
Because he was not expecting to win the presidency in 2008 or even the nomination. That was really Hillary's to lose, and she did.
Yeah, he caught fire on that. I guess my point is, Biden has that stink of legitimacy in regards to being a legitimate Democrat in a way that Bernie doesn't, which the black vote on some level is going to go to the guy who seems that way. Now, youth will go to Sanders, like 70%, some insane number. Black youth will go to Sanders because, again, they're not part of that older class that needs that legitimate quote-unquote thing. But Joe Biden was the guy that could do it.
And he'd been vice president under Obama, and that's no small thing.
That's
he had been was viewed as a loyal lieutenant.
And Pete Buttigieg was getting like -2% of the black.
Never mind the fact that he started his career opposing court-ordered busing.
Right. It's just the way it works. And so, it's not necessarily fair. And my family was voting Sanders all the way through, but wasn't enough. It's just the way it worked.
Yeah.
Another thing is happening. There is, there's a video of Malik that I kind of want to go to, but I'm going to go to another one first because I brought you on for the conversation. There seems to be a bit of rage taking place in Democratic circles with progressives, quote unquote, who are very angry at the fact that liberals keep losing. Like they keep losing this race. And just like that particular, oh, damn it, what happened to it? Just like the one with Elizabeth Warren, where he's like, dude, are you serious right now? You're sitting here laughing with me while simultaneously pointing out that you effectively lied to the American public in regards to the capabilities of this man who literally lost to Donald Trump, something that was supposed to be a worst case scenario. If I can find this video, somehow I lost the video. It's, where is it? It's the one about David Hogg. So this is the new VP, I guess vice chair in the Democratic Party. And he has started.
Oh God, him.
He's obnoxious. He's obnoxious. But what he's doing is creating a super PAC.
Best thing that ever happened to him is surviving a mass shooting.
Oh, that's brutal. That is
Who
brutal.
would he be if that hadn't happened?
That is brutal. All right, fair enough. You're my guess.
I don't know if his classmates died to make him God, but yeah.
He is
now a vice chair.
He is annoying. I will give you credit. I give you credit for it. He's annoying. And I wasn't even going to do this video because of how annoying he is.
Little Harvard boy.
However, he has decided Democrats are effing up. They keep losing. So I'm going to have a super PAC.
He does have eyes. Yeah.
To get rid of some folks. Now, this was, if you remember the AOC thing, when AOC got into Congress, her thing was, we need to primary some folks. And she was effectively bent into form by the machine. Mm-hmm. He is saying, we need to primary some folks. These Democrats are not doing it. They're screwing up. They failed continuously. Something is wrong. Something needs to change. I'm going to give you his time.
Why?
Here's the deal. You can have a great script, but if you have actors that are awful at their jobs, it doesn't matter how good that script is.
Now, this comes as thousands are turning out for the Fight the Oligarchy tour that features
Okay, there we are. I don't know what just happened. The video, everything just started spinning. Let me bring you back to it, if I can. There we are. Okay. I have no idea what just happened. That is like they just didn't like him to that degree. All right, I will just tell you. So Andrew Cuomo comes on as like with a level of irony that is breathtaking. If you go to progressives, Trump is going to win. What? What?
It's a religion. It's not a. It's like there's no empirical data to support that. I mean, it's got okay. Show me when the last time is that Democrats went with a progressive in a. It was George McGovern in 1972. Okay, so granted, yeah, that didn't work out great, but I mean, they've gone with non-progressives many times and lost. Jimmy Carter in 1980, Mondale 84, Dukakis 88. I would argue Gore he kind of did win, but still he lost. And so it goes on and on. Kerry in 04. I mean, Democrats definitely know how to lose with moderates. They do.
They seem to only lose with moderates.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sake, Hillary Clinton.
They won with moderates too. They had Obama.
How on earth do they sit there and make this argument? Meaning, as you point out, McGovern was the last lefty to lose.
Yeah.
And you've had a string of losses, 2 of which happened under Donald Trump. Now, they could say, well, it was because she was a woman, she was a person of color. So that was the reason. Nonsense.
I don't believe that.
I don't believe that at all. And so you get candidate John Kerry, white, male, lost. He lost. Al Gore, white, male, end up losing. Whether he actually lost or not, who knows? Clinton, the most establishment candidate in the history of candidates, lost. Kamala Harris, lost. And Joe Biden would have lost. I know Joe Biden thinks I could have won that race. And I even think Joe Biden, when he goes to bed at night after he eats his applesauce, had a sense of satisfaction that she lost that race, right? Deep down sense of satisfaction. They kicked me out of the race, those bastards. And she lost. But they lose.
They do lose. And by the way, I want to just point out something about David Hogg, what he's quoted. And look, I didn't hear the whole thing. He may have had more to say. He's not a dumb guy. But but when he said you can have the best line in the world, but if your actor sucks, it's not going to land. True, but don't imply that the Democratic Party has the best script in the world either,
right?
Because that ain't true at all.
There's no substance. Yeah, there's no substance under that, which is what I would define as the issue. Which I would completely define as the issue, and it misses any self-evaluation, which is why I played that Elizabeth Warren clip first, because if you watch that whole clip, there's a part in the clip where he points out, why do you reframe everything I say? And she says, well, that's my superpower. And it's again, dude, this is not folksy. You lost on a massive effing level. How are you sitting here being folksy with me, telling me that's your superpower? I don't need you to reframe it. I just need you to answer my questions. And they go back and forth over that point, basically, look, that shit's annoying. I just need you to answer my questions. I'm asking you questions. Why are you changing what I ask you? That is a fascinating interview. I do not know how the guy got that interview with 800.
She came in person.
Yeah, in person, no less.
To sit next to his ficus.
Well, I don't know how that worked. I honestly, God, I don't know how. God bless him, because he was going after her. He had no fucks to him. At one point, he was like, "That's damn something." He started cursing in the interview. When he got frustrated, I don't care if you're a senator. I'm going to be respectful, but I want to put a knife in you because I'm pissed off at the fact that you guys lost to Trump. That is a fascinating interview. I swear to God, it is. If you guys had the opportunity, I guess I can put the link at the bottom. I made a clip of it. They'll take you to the entirety of the video. What do you think about that idea, though? Primarying Democrats, effectively saying, look, I have a super PAC. I'm the vice chair of the DNC, no less. Mm-hmm. And I have PACs that will go after Democrats to get rid of them if I don't think they're doing their jobs. And of course, you're getting other Democrats, like Hakeem Jeffries was losing his mind. What the hell? How is he doing this? How are you a part of the vice chair going after other Democrats? That's outrageous.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit, it's lifted from the Trump playbook, right? Mm-hmm. Trump always threatens to primary Republicans he doesn't like. So this is a hostile takeover attempt. But
again,
I gotta say,
Justice Democrats, by the way, just to interrupt real quick.
David Hogg is no Donald Trump. So he doesn't have the juice. He can't pull this off. I don't care how big his super PAC is. And I don't think it's that big. I mean, it's interesting, but it's it's sort of like you're trying to, and it's kind of look, I'm sympathetic to the idea of primarying centrists and getting some, but he's not even saying that he's trying to. I mean, David Hogg's a centrist too. He's no lefty at all. And so, it's like, so he's going to primary people. He's basically an ageist. He's just said, like, there's too many he says this all the time. There's too many old Democrats and they don't get, he's not hip to the concerns of today's youth, man. And it's like, okay, fine. That's true. And there are too many old Democrats and their farm team sucks. And that's Obama's fault. He really let that languish. But I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's like the Democrats have more than one problem. Too many, the gerontocracy is part of it. Hello, Nancy Pelosi. But that's only part of it. I mean, it's the message. It's the failure to connect with populism and with the working class. It's the failure to fight hard when they have the chance. It's the decision to punt when you do have control of the Senate with the supermajority and you don't go crazy and do everything you can. It's just, there's a lot of things wrong with the Democratic Party. And that's just, if David Hogg thinks that putting in a bunch of 28-year-olds is going to fix this problem, he's wrong.
Yeah. I don't think a better actor. Is it?
It helps, but it's not.
Well, it's one thing if he's arguing substance, right? They need a message. They need and fulfill that message. They need their own Project 2025. They need give me substance.
Speaking of which, that's my new book, kind of. Except it's not for the Democrats; it's for the left.
Yes.
But basically, it's just like what should the left want? They should have a set of demands that are clearly defined, and then they can organize around that. It's called What's Left. The Democrats should have something equivalent. They should have we don't know what would happen if, let's say, there was a revolution and the left took over. We don't know what they would do, and but we should. And we should know what voters should know what the Democratic Party would do if they found themselves with overwhelming control of the branches of government. But we don't know that either. And really, they didn't do shit for 3 years under Biden. What did they do in 2020, in 2022, 3 and 4? Nada, nothing, except support Ukraine and Israel. That's it.
Yeah. That is the brand, right? It seems like they have come to the conclusion that they don't have to do anything.
Right.
That just being a placeholder.
Clearly they're mistaken, though, but yeah.
Yeah, in their minds, the Republican Party is so bad that nobody would vote for them. And so if they're just a placeholder.
And they're wrong.
Yeah, they're wrong. I mean, well, obviously, Trump.
I mean, what's hilarious
Trump won, right?
Trump, what's funny is both parties are about, as popular as herpes right now. But Democrats are less popular. I mean, just think about where we're at, right? Donald Trump basically, by his own self, tanked the entire global economy and lost 14% of all market capitalization in the securities markets, and may be heading us towards a recession or worse right now.
Maybe.
All by his own self. And there's mad chaos in minority communities surrounding deportations and stuff. There's nobody knows what's going on in terms of foreign policy. It's a mess. We don't know if we're going to be at peace with Iran or we're going to bomb Iran. Nobody knows. Anyway, the chaos is crazy. His polls are tanking. He's still more popular than the Democratic Party. So if I'm the Democrats, I'd be thinking, wow, they think we suck even worse than this guy that they also think sucks. That's we're the suckiest of them all. Their approval is at the lowest ever in the history of polling.
What, 27%, I think, the last one. And Donald Trump has no wins. He has failed across the board.
True.
Failed in Ukraine, failed in the Israel thing. Well, at least I think he did. It's basically backing the genocide.
He's failed. He could still win in Ukraine. He could. He would have to, I think he would. I think he needs an in-person summit with Putin. That's what needs to happen.
It wouldn't help. I am of mind. Sputnik,
it's not Reagan and Gorbachev where they.
Sputnik and RT is not coming back. That is where I am at this point, because the American president can't give Russia what they want. He just can't. He doesn't have it in him. Like for Putin, it's about national security. He's assumed this role, my philosophical job but before I leave this earth, is to secure Russia. That's what I'm doing. And okay, so what does that mean? No NATO in Ukraine. How do you do that? How do you validate that it won't be NATO?
I think the answer is to have like a Kurdistan type solution, where basically on the it's de jure versus de facto.
No,
Russia has de facto control. There's a little dotted line, sort of like the line of control in Kashmir. Technically speaking, Donetsk is in Ukraine, but everyone knows it's not really. I think that's the way.
It would be unacceptable from Russia's point of view. These are
the U.S. can't give that. The U.S. cannot give that to him, though.
Exactly. I mean, but that's my point. Like that's what I mean. Like the things that they would need are the things they have to take at the barrel of a gun, and a president can't.
Or maybe you set it up. Or maybe you validate it for the Americans by saying, okay, so we do it this way, and then in 5 years there's a plebiscite, and the locals with international monitoring, they all vote whether they want to be in Russia, and they will all vote to be in Russia. So they would. So
the loser does not get to dictate terms.
Right.
It's just that, like, how is Trump dictating anything?
Well, he has leverage. He has some leverage.
Where? What is his leverage?
It's the sanctions and stuff.
They don't care about the sanctions.
Yeah,
they flat out, we don't care about the sanctions.
But they're like, they're like more annoying than like life-threatening. Yeah.
Europe has tanked economically. Russia has been going at like 4.5% clip and has moved into like the number 4th or 5th spot for GDP.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Like from their point of view, look, man,
they have alliances they never had before.
I would tell you that from their point of view, they don't give a shit what the West is talking about to itself. That's where I think they're at. I mean, put yourself in their shoes for a moment. For the last 3 years, even according to the New York Times, the U.S. has been killing Russians to the tune of like 100,000, 200,000. Europe has been going with this jingoism and this just racist hatred for what is effectively a stab in the back myth. Putin just wanted to use 150,000 troops to take all of Europe. Okay, that's nonsense. And we know it's nonsense, right? They were rational actors in the way that they were dealing with the stuff in the same way that the United States would deal with the Cuban Missile Crisis. That is not the narrative that Europe or America is going with. And all of the negotiation attempts, Minsk 1 and 2, and now they're like, we want to Minsk 3. Good luck. There's no trust. Even with, like, if you think of the Israel thing, where for the most part, Trump comes in with a deal and then lets Israel violate the ceasefire that was supposed to take place on energy infrastructure. Ukraine violated the entire way through. The U.S. had nothing to say about it. Trump got rid of NAFTA. Trump is putting tariffs on countries that he had worked out trade deals with in his first term, got rid of the missile treaties associated with the Soviet Union. All of these things, right? The JCPOA just pissed it away, murdered Soleimani, and now it's like, hey, we need to have another JCPOA. Why would any country, especially Russia, that the U.S. has been a part of the war, by the way, or for the matter Iran, trust anything that is coming out of America? They don't.
No, I hear you. I do.
It's like it is maddening, frustrating to me because I felt like I gave it a chance. Like I didn't take this position immediately. My position was kind of like, I wait and see what happens.
Well, that's what you have to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Trump comes up with this comically ridiculous plan. Was like, we're going to take the nuclear power plant that's in Russia at this point under the Russian Federation. Okay. How do you plan to do that, Trump?
Okay, good luck.
Yeah. Like, that's what I mean, right? Like, you see the plan and you're like, are you serious right now? Initially, when I saw Witkoff's plan of the 5 regions and no NATO, I was like, that's hopeful. That's actually, he's sticking his neck out, And then the other stuff came out. And it's like, oh, God. Like, dude, you're not getting it. It's like, I thought, when I saw that plan, I thought, either Donald Trump has crafted a plan that he knows is going to fail so he can walk, or he's out to lunch.
I don't think he can get there. I mean, look, this kind of level of diplomacy is hard. And, I mean, it really would be hard for any American president, no matter how excellent their temperament, to get it done. But Donald Trump he just doesn't have, I mean, he's like an ADHD president. He's like, wait, there's Iran. And wait, it's like, well, what about Bitcoin? He's all over.
And it's like, we need it done in a week. It's like, okay, dude, are you serious right now? Like you're trying, like if you listen to Wickoff is talking about this massive emancipatory deal that is going to redefine Europe and Russian, the U.S. and Russian relationships for the foreseeable future. Like that's the way Wickoff is talking about this stuff on Sean Hannity. And you listen to that, you're like, he makes you even hopeful. He's like, whoa, that's pretty amazing. Like that's wow, that's awesome. Like we can put to bed this Cold War. This is fantastic. This is great. And then you see the proposal, and you're like, okay. Like, okay. Are you being serious? No. I would tell you when I heard Wickoff, a tiny bit of hope. Like the Grinch Stole Christmas, where his heart grew a little bit. I was like, oh, maybe there's something there. Maybe he's going to have these business agreements. Now, to be fair, there are 2 tracks of negotiation.
It's not done yet, but yeah.
That's true. And there's a track about the war, and there's a track about business.
Mm-hmm.
Opening airlines, business deals, businesses going back to so fair enough. Maybe in this track.
And Trump is interested in that.
Yes, he is. Which is why they send Carrillo here. They send a businessman to talk business. They send Wickoff to talk business. Like, so fair enough. I would tell you though, my heart Trump back down. Like the Grinch's heart just turned to stone immediately. When I saw this, I was like, oh God, this is outrageous. You can't believe, like, part of me thought when Trump said, if I don't get the deal, I'm gonna walk. And I thought to myself, you realize Russia's okay with that, right? They would prefer that.
Well, I think that pressure is more on Ukraine than on Russia, to be honest.
Exactly. Which is why my thought was, okay, he's blaming Ukraine to some degree on this. More than that.
Yeah, he is. Because Ukraine's not serious.
Yeah, and they're going to Europe trying to kill the deal. There's that part too.
Yeah.
And so I kept thinking.
That's the thing, right? When you see, when Zelensky's off palling around with Macron, that's what he's on about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
If I were Trump, I'd be like, it's like on Shark Tank. If you go talk to, if I'm all making you an offer, if you go talk to him, I'm out. That's what Trump should be like. Like,
what is your take
Macron, I'm out.
Do you think I'm too brutal on this? Like I said, this was not my original position. I literally was like, I would float for a couple of months to see what happens. Yeah. I would be in purgatory. I would take great expense in regards to paying Airbnbs, not having the place, being a leaf in the wind, just to see what happens. Because I don't know. And I'm aware of the limits of my knowledge in this case. I gave it a month. The first month, I'm like, what the hell are you doing, man? But they're negotiating. So fair enough, you're negotiating. Then they talk. I'm like, okay, well, if they talk, that's good. They had a conversation. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't care what RT or Sputnik say on their website. They don't trust Trump. They don't trust America.
No.
Like they would say, oh, this is the greatest relationship we've had in God knows how long. Oh, we trust Trump because Trump understands the meaning of the war and why it started. Oh, we do this and we do that. And
well, he does. He does understand that. He understands why it started. He does.
He doesn't seem like
it. I think it's because he's like I said, I think he's an adult teenager who just doesn't have the focus. He's not Jimmy Carter. Or even Bill Clinton. Once I love, I'm from Dayton, where the Dayton Peace Accords were signed, and basically Clinton was one of his brilliant moves was to get the 3 presidents of the former Yugoslavia to all meet at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. He lied to them. He said, this is going to be like a nice secure location. So, no one will attack you, especially Milosevic. But the truth was Clinton wanted to get them into a really heinous, boring Midwestern shithole where they would feel like they would be wanting to get the deal done so they could get the fuck out and go home. And so when negotiations started to bog down, Bill swept in and he was like, listen, there's a French restaurant. You have been eating this shitty food on base. There's a French restaurant in Dayton. There's only one, L'Auberge. We will, and I've seen like the meal plan and all the seating plan and all that framed in the lobby of the restaurant. It's like, if you sign now, all 3 of you rascals, we all get to go out and eat French food and drink champagne. And they were like, done. That's like, now I don't see Donald Trump, cannily coming up with something like that. I just don't.
No, I do not. And at the point where Zelensky is like, I have 100%, I don't have 99% hatred for Putin, I have 100%. And then he goes like on the interview and he's showing like Russian cities being bombed. It's like, these are from my wall. It's like, okay, dude, we get it. You don't like the guy. You've internalized all of the stuff. Oh,
yeah.
It's just
well,
wild.
I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of like, well, but yeah, when you're, it's like, oh, well, I don't know if we can trust these people. You know, they've been bombing our territory. Well, yeah, that's, you know, you don't need to have negotiations with your besties. You need to have negotiations with the people you hate. And it's like, well, I don't know if I can trust them. No, you don't, and they don't know if they can trust you either. Like, that's what diplomacy is. It's for enemies to settle things. So I don't think Zelensky understands that. I don't think he understands what diplomacy is for.
The problem with that tip is that the United States is not an arbiter in this. They're a participant. And the notion that one of the participants is somehow trying to pretend.
I think Trump's idea was, I wasn't a participant until I became president. Like, this was Biden's war. I'm going to put an end to it when I come in. So I'll, you know, and that's why he was like, put Zelensky in his place in the Oval Office. Like, and he's like, I'm not on anybody's side. I'm on the side of peace.
I don't buy that, nor do the Russians. And
the
Trump
Russians don't buy
brags about sending javelins and all of the sanctions and everything else. Meaning he was in the ramp up to the war also. It's America. It's kind of like, what is it called? I had a conversation with Savvy Sabs about it. What is it called? Reparations. It's the reparations argument, right? Where people was like, well, I didn't do anything to you, so why should you get reparations? And it's like, dude, it's not you. Like, nobody believes there's a vampire in a cave somewhere that is responsible for slavery. What they're talking about is the persistence of the U.S. government that was directly involved in crafting laws and everything else that did it. It's the government. It's not the individual. So I know Trump wants to take this stance of like, well, you know, I didn't do that. I'm sorry. There's a continuity between presidents in regards to policy that Trump may be trying to turn a bit, but it's still America. And Trump is still the guy who pulled out of all these other deals. And so it's hard. Like, and he doesn't have this focus to do this for much.
When you say that, you know, you bring up an excellent point. I keep maybe it would have been wise to bring in a neutral arbiter, someone completely removed from this. You know,
like China,
like the Chinese. They love these kind of negotiations. They're good at them. Someone that both sides could trust. India, someone.
They tried.
You know, in Central Asia, there's always border disputes in the former Soviet republics, and whenever things get too hot and hairy, the Kyrgyz are always brought in as negotiators. It's like I get the Kyrgyz. Like, they're neutral. Everyone respects them. Everyone thinks they're fair. And so, like, if the Uzbeks and the Kazakhs are at it, like, you know, it's like, all right. But finally, you'll read, like, Kyrgyz negotiators were brought in, and everyone's like, it's going to be fine. It's like Pulp Fiction, like, call the wolf. Oh, why didn't you tell me the wolf was coming? It's fine. Like, the Kyrgyz are the wolf. And it's like, that's, you know, I mean, that's maybe what's needed here. Is like, you know, is a third, honestly, bring in Vanuatu, bring in someone else, you know.
Yeah.
The Chinese would be a great choice.
The Chinese tried, if you remember, and the Europeans and the Americans are like, no.
I think the Europeans are the biggest pain in the ass here, to be honest. I think that's the biggest problem, more so than what the issue of the U.S. succession, Trump inheriting Biden's war. It's really the French and the Brits and the Germans. They're the biggest. They're screwing this up.
They're going to start a war.
I would, if I were Trump, I'd be leaning on them. I'd be like, I'm going to be.
How? He's alienated Europe.
Well, that's true. He could threaten to withdraw from NATO.
Well, he's pulling troops out, apparently, or considering pulling troops out. I don't know if that's. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just.
NATO shouldn't exist anyway. So.
Agreed. No, 1,000% agree with you. And, you know, I don't know if the 5% thing is a way for him to either force them to increase their military membership, or for him to make an excuse to look like, see, I don't know what is in his mind. It's that part. Like, well, and maybe nobody does, right?
Yeah.
I try to look at what he does as a clue. And so, like, for example, sidelining the State Department in all negotiations. You use a realist, you use Wickoff. Okay, so does that mean that he ultimately is instinctually trying to get a deal? Or is this some kind of bluff Just say, well, we tried. And now we can now bomb the Iranians. Like you made the point saying nobody knows what the hell he's doing. He's like wrecking havoc around the world and destroying our economy as he does it.
True.
And yet, nobody knows what the fuck he's doing. It's strange.
Nobody knows.
Strange. Ted, man, I have to. Oh, Jesus Christ! I'm sorry, Ted. Please tell me, like, if I'm missing something.
Can I fit my book before I go?
Absolutely, plug your book.
I just got the print copies early ones, so here they are.
Short.
What's left? Never mind the Democrats. Here's what's left.
Where can they find it?
You can order it on Amazon or anywhere else. And this is kind of like what it looks like. So it's prose. It's got some cartoons mixed in, and it's a political manifesto that basically tries to define policies for if you didn't have a revolution, but you took the existing federal budget and you rejiggered all that money to good stuff instead of bad stuff, what would it look like? And it's like very granular.
Because they always ask, how do you pay for it?
Right. That's always the question, right? So under this system, it's not even like overthrowing capitalism, which is what I want. But we can't do that without a socialist and communist party. So
check the book out if you're looking for answers, solutions, ideas on where the left goes. That's been a question that people have been asking. Where's the left without?
May 1st is the pub date. So if you have trouble buying it, wait till May 1st. International Workers' Day.
Check them out. Ted, thank you for this. I'm so sorry. Please tell me if I'm running over.
No worries. I got 7.5 whole minutes. I'll be fine.
You be safe, man. Thank you for this. I appreciate it. Thanks, man. And fantastic book. I love the fact that you showed it. Thank you for this. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Check Ted out on TMI. He's going to be on at 10 o'clock on his very next show. Too Much Information with Manila Chan. She is fantastic. Ted is fantastic. If you get the opportunity on May 1st, check out his book. He's been on the show God knows how many times. He gave me a copy. I'm going to read that copy. PDF form of the copy. So I'm going to read that copy. Give him ideas on it, or my take on it. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. Look, when I say Ted's historical knowledge is like encyclopedic, it is amazing. I swear it's amazing. Let me go to the chat. We've done an entire show. Peter Coffin, I don't know what happened to Peter. I'll hit him up after. What is Zaporozhye? What if Zaporozhye's an irradiated mess? Don't be shocked. What is it? Pooty Pook takes the deal after cleverly finding a way to make it suck for the West. Oh, you mean basically Russia blows it up and it's that we'll take the deal? No, it's not just that. It's not. There are a few things in it. For one, Russia's not going to accept a frozen conflict. Full stop. Why would they? If you are progressing on the battlefield, you're filling your ranks. Your GDP is like 4.5 or something, basically a normal economy. The opposite can't do that. They're pulling in women, children, 18-year-olds into the fight because they are losing manpower and losing the stuff. They're snatching people literally off the streets in order to throw them into the military to go and get shot in the face by the Russians. Why would you stop? Why would you want to stop? You're winning. Yes, you don't want anybody to die. Agreed. But this is a military conflict that is existential for you. All of NATO, including the United States, has been killing Russians and has been pressing upon your border. And this is the moment where you are solving that issue. Why would you stop? And especially stop to freeze a conflict in the same way that Syria was a frozen conflict. And look what happened in Syria. You've expended hundreds of thousands, maybe 200,000 blood and treasure into this war. Why would you stop and let them rearm? Let them get rest, let them get more intelligence, let them fill themselves with weapons again, and you have to do this all over again X number of years later, or hell, a few months later. There's no reason for you to stop under that model. You try to finish it and get it done. If you get a deal that meets your demands, fair enough, right? Frozen conflict doesn't meet your demands. It doesn't. Not acknowledging the territories doesn't meet your demands. And hell, that's a sticking point right there, right? That is, if anything else, that's a flying ointment. That is not something Ukraine is going to accept. That is not something Europe is going to accept. Russia doesn't care. They don't care. The notion that you are going to somehow take Zaporozhye power plant is insane. That is you effectively saying we're taking Russian territory and we're taking the power plant associated with it. Okay, good luck. Good luck. Tell me how you plan to do that. Like, this deal is farcical. There are other elements, European troops. Apparently that's, a gray area that's potentially going to be floated. Okay, again, all of that is a no. That's effectively NATO in Ukraine, which is a no. Those people are going to get shot in the face. They're going to die. They're all going to die or get pushed out. I have been right all the way through this war. It's not me being mystical or anything like that. I've had awesome people to talk to give me their appraisal and just covering the subject matter. It has a trend line. There are logic issues that are built into it, regardless of anything else. The logic issues are the things that I care about most. You have 150,000 people, troops, that go in and take 20% territory, and Ukraine's military can't stop them when they're at their best and most radical. Okay, that doesn't bode well. They can't hold the territory with 150,000 because Ukraine is huge. So they pull back. The West's response is, Ukraine has pushed them back. This is astonishing. My reporting was they fell back because there's not enough troops to effectively hold a territory as big as Ukraine. This is not Ukraine crushing. This is them pulling back. There's a difference in those things. And so he's a Russian stooge. That's the only reason he says. Okay, fair enough. What do you get? The military swells in size, more proficient at various warfare, and they take the territory back. And not just take the territory back, they keep going. And it's hard to stop them. This attrition warfare, where they're outproducing the entirety of the West, and doing this with one arm effectively behind their back. And so you look at that, you're like, okay, this is unsustainable for the Ukrainian government. There's no way they can keep this up. They are going to lose. Even with the weapon systems that are put in, that get neutralized. There's a new wonder weapon every month. And eventually within a couple of weeks, the wonder weapon no longer has the capabilities. These are logic issues that you just kind of see where you're like, okay, this doesn't look well. This doesn't bode well for the Ukrainian government. Why would they stop? Why would they want a ceasefire? Why would they want to give time for Ukraine to reload? Why would they want to give time for Britain and Germany to put more missiles and weapons in where they can fire in Russian cities and have America given intelligence? Why would they want that, right? And so it doesn't make sense to accept some nonsense that's being offered here. How do you assure that there is no NATO for Ukraine? Ukraine used to be neutral, just like Austria is neutral. It is no longer neutral. How do you ensure that it remains out of Ukraine, out of NATO, especially considering everything that is coming out of Europe is like, we'll revisit this later. We'll put peacekeepers in. We'll do all of this other stuff. Okay, all of those are no's. The American president has no capability of ensuring that they won't be part of Ukraine if Russia refuses to keep going. All of these are no's. This is not a situation where I trust you. This is where I have ample, legitimate, voluminous reasons not to. So I am not. Full stop. If you can assure me that you won't be part of NATO and somehow make it ironclad, some metaphysical ironclad certainty, maybe we can talk. When you get your metaphysical ironclad certainty, come back and negotiate with me. Until then, I will look at your proposal. I will look at it. I'll read it. I share it with my friends. That shit's going to be a no. I'm sorry. David, shout out to you, David, thank you for that. Let's keep going. Wandy, USA. Iran is part of BRICS. BRICS cannot let Israel and the USA win. Jamal, put your membership sticker. It's on. I swear it's on. The next person has literally given a membership sticker. I don't know what they'll do. It's complicated. Like, China and Russia are supposed to be closer than allies. They have military drills. They work together internationally. And yet China didn't get involved in the war. North Korea and Russia has military alliance. One will come to the other aid. North Korea hasn't gotten into the war. I don't give a shit what they say in the press. They find Russia is a massive continent. They find somebody who looks Asian because they're Asian people look Asian in Russia, and they say that guy's North Korean or that guy's Chinese. It's like, okay. Then they were arguing that they would burn their faces just before they died. It puts me in the mind of Dave Chappelle, where they said when the police used to shoot somebody, they would sprinkle crack on themselves so there'd be no witnesses. It's like, I don't want anybody to see my face. Sure. Look, my point is this. In the same way that they weren't militarily offering support, sending troops or anything like that, they assisted in other ways. Russia's point of view was, we can handle this. We got this. This is our fight. They didn't get involved in that way. Any attack on Iran would be effectively airstrikes. I know Israel's talking about these commando raids and everything else. I'm very skeptical of that. Maybe, I don't know. But would they give them military support, like S-500s or S-400s, whatever they're called? Would they help them with their targeting and intelligence? Would they? I think all of that stuff is yes. All of it. So it would help. The reason why I'm skeptical about a military engagement is because if you are talking about U.S. assistance and Russia fires on U.S. ship, that the world goes fuckery real fast. The way the America thinks, it goes fuckery. So I'm slightly skeptical of that, but I don't know, right? Like nobody thought killing Archduke Ferdinand was going to lead to the First World War either. So who knows how things spiral out of control when these militaries get involved in stuff they shouldn't be involved in. So Wanda, shout out to you and thank you for the super chat, honestly. Captain Obvious, new member. Welcome to the family, Captain Obvious. Welcome to the family. And we have Diane Thomas. Where do I go to become a member? That's somewhere below at the bottom, I believe. Yeah, that's somewhere at the bottom, I believe. Peter, you are super late, man. Peter, we've had the conversation. You are so late. How you doing? You doing okay?
I'm good. About yourself?
I am doing fine. You're supposed to be here at 9 a.m.
Oh, man.
It is 10 a.m. And I am
it's 9 a.m. for me. I'm so stupid.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't put EST. Usually I put EST.
Yeah.
Usually...
No, I'm way off. Sorry about that.
You're fine. You're fine. Where are you located, by the way?
I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, you're Tim Walz.
Yeah.
Tim Walz.
Yes.
That's your guy.
Tim Walz, my governor.
Interesting.
My hero.
Peter, while you're here,
I'm sorry about that.
You're fine. You're fine. I'm Ted Rall was here, so he stayed with me the entire time. We talked about all sorts of stuff.
Okay. I don't have to. I can come here another day if that's.
Thank you. I was gonna invite you. Okay, I'm gonna do calendar stuff. I'm sorry, guys. Give me 1 second.
I'm sorry. I was absolutely not thinking this.
You're perfectly fine. What about 8 a.m. your time? Is that okay, or does it need to be later?
Well,
in the show,
a little later might be a little better. Like 8:30 my time. Okay. 9:30. We don't have to schedule this right now either.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. The audience is like, "What the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this?" Right?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't come here to see that. Look, I want to thank you, man. Like, beyond anything else, you've been one of those people who have also showed up. The show has hit over 50K. We had our anniversary. It's not really anniversary. I don't know what they call it.
Huge congratulations to you, by the way.
I appreciate it. It's all of us. Like, it's not just me. Like, if I didn't have guests, there wouldn't be a show. If I didn't have an audience, there wouldn't be a show.
I don't know. I think you have enough of a brain on your own.
Yeah, but you got to talk to people, right? Like,
true. I agree. No, I do agree with you. I think that it's very important to have a dialogue on everything, even if you don't necessarily agree with everything. It's important to at least speak with. I value, not to start really. I value that a lot. I think that's a really, it's a great element of what you do here, and it's why I watch.
Look, man, there have been things that I've changed my mind on, like on the spot. Like, yeah, you're right about that. Like, just, but you would never know, like, if you never had those conversations. And and you learn stuff from people who are in different experiences. Like you have people who are talking about China. Hell, we had Esteban talk about Ecuador. Kofi talks about Africa. Like you're basically get a snapshot of stuff around the world, and you learn from it. It informs your point of view. You have to read up on it in order to even know the basics to even have a conversation about it. No, it's a good experience. But I appreciate all of you for being willing to join me. Like there's some people who get extra special thank you just because they've been coming on constantly. You're one of them. You've been coming on from day one.
I appreciate that. I also I appreciate your leniency for being.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. The EST thing. If I didn't put EST, that's my fault.
Well, no, that's not your fault. It's my fault because I'm even thinking about time zones. I've been so tired the last the weather's been up and down here like crazy, and it just knocks me out.
Yeah,
so it's my fault, honestly.
I deal with time zones constantly. It's so like because people are everywhere. I hit Kofi up. Kofi was like, "I'm in the bush right now." I was like, "You're in the bush, okay?" That was the funniest shit ever. I'm in the bush. I
was cracking up a minute ago, and you were bringing up. I mean, it's unrelated, but you were bringing up Chappelle and how they're claiming that people are North Korean just because they're Asian. And they were sprinkling crack on people's faces in the Chappelle. That's one of the best Chappelle skits
because they were arguing that North Koreans were burning their faces before they died.
Yeah. It's like, come on.
It's like, are you serious right now? And it puts me in mind the David Chappelle thing. It's like they want, the police want to solve cases. And if you have crack sprinkled on them, the cases are solved. But people keep doing it to themselves as if the cops aren't killing these people. Yeah, right.
I don't know. That's one of the better Chappelle. I mean, Chappelle has got such good stuff. And not to start a completely different topic here, but like it cracked me up. You brought that up. It's just such a good. It was such a good reference. It's very relevant.
That show is so good. Like the Rick James one.
Yeah, I'm Rick James, bitch.
Yeah, I'm Rick James, bitch. Well, oh God, the one with the Black Klansman, the Black Blind Klansman.
Oh my God, yes, I love that. That one is so.
It's so good. And at the very end of it, she was like,
because the way
white wife,
the way he says the word is like it's the funniest aspect of it because he says it exactly like all of those people say it.
Yeah,
it's just like it's such a crazy. It's so funny, and it's really funny because like they kind of present it in a way where you don't. I mean, you obviously know it's Chappelle, and you know that he's not white, but
that's
like
the real thing, though. Like that's that's like the real guy's voice, like who does those like PBS specials where they talk about stuff.
Yeah,
it just made it work.
It's such a good skit. It's such a good. You obviously know it's him, but the way they present it, they play it up so perfectly well.
Like
it's such a good
they
one.
don't know he's blind and he doesn't know he's black and nobody told him. That's why he hates black people. Oh God,
it's like the reverse of The Jerk, basically.
Yeah, it just
like
worked.
I wonder if that was kind of like maybe something that they thought of when they were making it, because I always thought about that because I didn't think about it when I saw it originally, and then I remembered The Jerk sometime later. It's like this is like the flip side of The Jerk, and these like kind of go together in a really cool way. You know what I mean?
It just works. The punchline at the end, where his wife had been with for like 30 years or something, and he dumps her because she's an in lover.
Yeah,
he's married to him, and he hates himself. Oh man, it just that man is a genius. Like
he is.
Richard Pryor,
he really is.
David Chappelle, like there is a level of genius that runs through them in and he's only gotten better. Like his social commentary has become more incisive as he's gotten older. It's like he's looked around at the world, like, hey, there's a world here. I need to talk about this shit too.
It's interesting because he's also gotten calmer. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Like he used to be a very animated person, but now he delivers very, very sober monologues now that are they're still very funny. And I don't agree with everything the man says or anything, but like it's very, very incisive and interesting.
He's older. Like he's like if you listen to like Hoobastank or something like that when they're like in their 20s, they're hopping around on stage, they're losing their mind. Or Incubus. And then you listen to the older ones and they're singing ballads.
Hoobastank.
Yeah. That was the first thing that came to
I'm
mind.
sorry. And so even if I didn't know who Hoobastank was, I would have had a similar reaction. But like,
Yeah.
it's
The name
such
is
a
just
funny band
hilarious,
name.
right?
It's such a nice obscure, right? Like that's a good one as well.
Even Counting Crows. If you listen, like Recovering the Satellites, where he is like just like he is on full display in regards to like going at it at the song. Like it's so intense. And then you listen to some of the other ones like Hard Candy, he's chilled out. He's singing ballads. People
Yeah.
get old, right? People get older.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really liked of Chappelle was that game show where they were asking like white people. Like he goes, it was a game show, and he gives the question to the contestant: what could black people do
Paul
to
Mooney.
get out of? And the person
Paul
goes,
Mooney.
and the person goes, they could get out and vote. And he,
Paul Mooney.
it's
Paul
like,
Mooney. That's a black guy.
Nope. Nope.
It's so good.
I used that in a documentary recently.
Did you?
He's so funny, man.
There was one with the his racial humor. It's just God. It is so like sharp. Like but it's sharp in a funny way that makes it work. Like
yeah, it makes it work for everybody too. Like,
yeah,
he's not somebody who makes it so that like only this group can laugh at this. There's like he's very, very. I want everyone to laugh at this, and it's very intentional. That's something that I like about him a lot.
It's equal opportunity. He goes after anybody. He had this skit once where he had a black guy dress up as a white guy, like full makeup and everything else.
Oh yes, I love that
I
one.
want to see the world as a white guy. And he gets on the bus, and there's like other black people on the bus. When all the black people get off the bus, all the white people like start singing and dancing and jumping around. And he's like, "Oh my God, this is what they're doing! Oh God, that show is so fucking funny, man."
It's like they frame it like it's like a real hidden camera thing.
Yeah, yeah. He's like surprised, like, "Oh my God, I'm the first black man to ever see this." I'm sorry, the audience is like, "What the fuck is happening right now?"
Yeah, no, I mean I'm sorry, I brought it up, but
you're perfectly okay. Look, I have people who bring up Star Trek, and they fuck me when they do that because they. It's like, what character was your favorite character? What episode was your favorite episode? And then they drag me into this because I'm stuck. I can't extricate myself. I have to do the super chat.
Yeah,
Peter, I will see you in a few days. I will schedule you. I swear to God, and I will schedule you.
And also I will try to be mindful of the different time zones.
Fair enough. I should have. If I didn't, I typically religiously put EST, and maybe I didn't do it today. I was rushing today, so
I'm gonna find out real quick.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, you didn't put it, and there.
You said I did.
You didn't.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I'll take the blame. That's on me. I'll take the blame.
It's not on you. It should be on me because I know that you're in the EST time zone.
We'll split the
we'll both acknowledge our roles in this heinous crime.
We'll be adults in this. Peter, I will see you in a few days.
Yeah, it was good talking to you, man.
Thank you for coming on. I swear, I do appreciate you coming on, and I've appreciated you from the very beginning. I really do. So
I again, congratulations, and again, apologies.
You're perfectly fine. I swear to God, you're perfectly fine. No issue.
Have a good
one, man. Be safe. All right, guys, I am going to close this out. We are geeking out about David Chappelle. I think this shit is fucking hilarious. So there's that. But I'm going to say like, I'm going to say share, I'm going to say subscribe. David's not. No, he's not anti-trans. He's not. 1,000 times he's not. I know that people get very particular about their identities. Very particular. Unless you're going to argue that he's also anti-black, because some of the shit he said about black people, like in his jokes, or white people, then calm down about the trans stuff. He's equal opportunity. He's not hateful. In fact, I remember he did this thing where he was talking about it. He's very thoughtful when he's talking about the stuff. And he goes into this monologue about how he didn't quite get where people was getting that from. And he had to actually process that. Like, fuck, man, am I saying stuff that's anti-whatever? Look up the video. It's a fascinating thought process in the way that he's going with it. I don't think he's anti-trans at all. I don't think he has any hateful body. I don't think he has any hate in him at all towards the trans community. There's nothing that I've shown making a joke about somebody is weirdly enough, and maybe even ironically, bringing you into the club, not excluding you from the club. The notion that you can't be touched, can't be talked about. You're this perfect little human. Fuck out with that. You're a human being. You can be joked like anybody else. And he goes across the board to pretty much everybody. Yeah, the anti-trans stuff, I don't buy. I don't buy at all. This notion of trying to, blacklist somebody is just fucking insane. Star Trek Discovery is referred to as, it is, Star Trek Discovery is not Star Trek. That's some mutated shit that they came up with, any more than that nonsense of Section 31. It's nonsense. All right, I'm going to end this because we're just running our mouth. I'm going to say let your guests finish his thoughts. It's unprofessional and annoying. My guests do finish their thoughts in all of these interviews. You don't have to watch. There are other shows where people just talk for 30 minutes, and you are more than welcome to watch those shows. You have choice. You have total choice. Yeah, he's not making fun of anybody. It's the way he is. That's the way he is. So, all right, I'm going to end this. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Unless you don't like people asking questions, in which case, what the fuck ever. Have at it. And I'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning. Signing off. Correct, more chess. More chess. More chess. Yeah. Prince shoots you in the basement. Oh God, that is hilarious too. You know what's another one that's funny? The Dwayne, what is it? Dwayne. Damn it, what is his name? What is his name? That was a joke about the guy that was on Wayne Brady. Wayne Brady. Where they made this joke about Wayne Brady. It's like Wayne Brady makes white people something, but it was something like it's more white than white people. It was something to that effect. Paul Mooney said that shit on the show. David Chappelle, somehow Wayne Brady sees it. And it's like, what the actual fuck is that? Somehow they get together and Wayne Brady and David Chappelle do a skit where Wayne Brady is a straight thug and is like scaring the shit out of David Chappelle in the entire scene. It is hilarious. Like they were playing off the thing. No, man, that stuff is absolutely hilarious. What is it? Wayne Brady makes Brian Gumbel looks like Malcolm X. That's what it is. Wayne Brady makes Malcolm. I love the fact that you knew that right off the bat. Wayne Brady makes Brian Gumbel looks like Malcolm X. And of course, at that point, when Wayne Brady comes on the show, Wayne Brady is a straight thug. I don't know if he shoots David Chappelle at some point, but it is an insane scene. All right. You had a crush on Wayne Brady? Did you? Did you? Did you? You've been terrified of Wayne Brady since. Yeah, those things, that show was so good. And when that show went belly up, they couldn't carry it. Chappelle is the element of that show. It just doesn't work without him. And all sorts of weird shit went on. Like, to hear him talk about the end of that show, he basically made the point of saying, I felt like they were laughing at me as opposed to laughing with me. And it screwed them. It was like, I can't do this. Like, you're like, when I make a black joke, I'm making a joke thinking that all of us are laughing together, not that you are standing back, pointing and like, those are different things. That was the way he took it. Key and Peele ripped off Dave Chappelle. And not as good. And not as good. Nowhere near as good. They got the, funny elements, but nowhere near as good. All right. I'm going to say like. I'm going to say share. I'm going to say subscribe. What is it? I was poor living on the couch. And we own like 4 DVDs. And it was one being Chappelle Show Season 1 and 2. You were well compensated for that because he's awesome. All right, I'm going to end this for real. We're